What up, though? What up, though? What up, though?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, I don't know
Conspiracy,
why that.
brother.
I don't know
Yeah,
why
we
that
gotta.
looped. It didn't loop. I didn't have loop selected, so that was a glitch
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the program.
we gotta get back to the epic intro we had before. So I was kind of giving like a '90s. I don't know, like a '90s.
Yeah, well, see, I don't even know if you can change it because they
Oh,
changed it. I didn't actually. I didn't actually go in to try to change it. They changed it on their own. They
oh,
updated
no
the
good.
music, so I don't know. We'll see.
How about that?
We'll see.
All right, well, we'll get through it. Uh, welcome everybody back to Uncomfy Truths, Politics Talk, episode 48. I am your co-host, Conservative Brother. You might notice my name might be changed a little slightly. Just being a little honest about as far as like formerly Conservative Brother Daily. Maybe I'll say that. Kind of like Prince or the artist formerly known as Prince. I am now Conservative Brother. Just to be a little more consistent with the name. I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Conspiracy Brother, and Pastor William Green. We're back at it again.
Hey,
And
hey.
how is everybody doing? We had a small little break of a stretch. How's everybody been doing in these times of ours?
Oh, everything is good on my end.
All right, Conspiracy Brother.
Yeah, same, same. Just busy. Looking at the news and the current events. And daily I feel like this has to be some kind of simulation or something. I've said that
Mm-hmm.
before, and it really has me. I'm almost convinced like we're in the Matrix or something like that, because it seems like the stuff that's happening is so outlandish. You would
Mm-hmm.
never have believed it could be real, and here
Yeah,
we
most
are.
definitely. Yep, and here we are. Most gonna go ahead, guys, and once again, uncomfy truths. Our motto here is: remember, stay awake, not woke. Just because we're paranoid doesn't mean we're wrong. Keep thinking for yourself, and remember, if somebody else doesn't say it, then we will. So I had to go ahead, past the greens we've been doing usually. I know we respect all religions and cultures here, but we like to have a little opening prayer. So even if you're not Christian or you're Muslim or you're whatever it might be, whatever spirit or life force that you look up to, me personally, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. But we like to have a little prayer and feel free to take it how you will. But Pastor Green, if you want to go ahead, just give us a little opening prayer because we need it more than ever
Amen.
nowadays.
Amen.
So,
And dear Lord, we come before you right now. Father God, I pray that you will be in the midst of us. That Lord, that you will give us what to say. And we just thank you, Lord, that God, the scales are moved off of our eyes. But yet, Lord, I endeavor is for the scales to be moved off the eyes of others. So I just pray that, Father God, you will give us divine insight that we can share tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
amen. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And everybody, once again, you guys are watching Uncomfy Truths. Just a little shameless plug. Make sure you guys give us a follow on the following platforms. We are currently on 3 platforms. We are on Rumble, so you can subscribe to us over here, as you can see. I don't know if we have the screen share up, Conspiracy Brother, but we always got to keep plugging away. All right, we got Rumble. Conspiracy Brother, could you
Yeah, give me
share
one
the
second.
screen?
This is kind
Yep.
of
All right, all good. So we got
wonky.
Uncomfy Truths as well as YouTube and Odyssey. So definitely make sure to subscribe. I know forever we've been talking about we're gonna get more short content coming in. I'm on the way. Me and Conspiracy Brother, we definitely have to. We're looking into people that could kind of help maybe manage the channel, but at the same time, we just can't bring in some crazy leftist. It's like, oh, I'm triggered, or wants to be undercover and sabotage our channel. So you gotta be careful out here trying to out us. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer to maybe find somebody who's like-minded or at least would be okay with what we talk about, not get triggered. But yeah, just look out for that. We'll have more short form content clips we're going to cut up of the show. Search is just taking a little longer. But maybe if you or maybe someone you know that does video editing and things like that might be interested, hit us up. Hit us in our inbox. So we're on Rumble, as you can see here, as well as YouTube. Feel free to subscribe, and then also we are on Odyssey as well. So Odyssey, we definitely probably gotta, we got, you know, got to update that a bit. But once again, Odyssey's, more on the come up. So we definitely want to make sure we're diversifying where we put our platform at, in case YouTube come rolling in and wipe us out for no reason. All right, so I'm gonna dive right into the topics. Our first topic, guys, we have is domestic affairs. So here are our topics. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about each top. Well, introduce each topic, and then everybody can kind of go ahead and choose what they want to touch on the subtopic menu, if you will. So we have the Supreme Court recently issued a ruling on nationwide injunctions on birthright citizenship. So pretty nuanced, but basically there's no longer, or at least they could be a lot more contested, where these federal judges, these left wing radical judges that just keep continue coming down, and they think they can just swap down what the president of the United States says. Supreme Court, I think about a week or two ago, issued a ruling on that, so it grants a little bit more in the Trump administration's favor. It's not cut and dry, but it is a start. Also, we got that Democrat socialist non-citizen. What was his name? Zoman Mandani, right?
Mamdani, yes, Mamdani.
Madani, yeah, we touched about him briefly because there wasn't a whole lot of media stuff going on. We did touch on him briefly last episode, but I think as soon as he won that primary against Andrew Cuomo, everybody, oh guy, So I got a lot to stay on that because definitely he's now nipping at the mayor of the office of the mayor of New York heels. And then we got Ramone Jackson over at Souls to the Polls. He's a local activist out here in Detroit. So I had the pleasure of going to one of their recent town halls that they do once or twice a week through Pastor Lorenzo over at 180 Church. So they do great work out there, activism work, staying on top, keeping Trump accountable on like a lot of the election integrity issues in Detroit. So he did a deep dive on some stuff going on, and I want to share a little bit on that. We also got Trump's Paramount lawsuit. I believe that was a lawsuit against, I think both Paramount and who owns CBS News, and that was for that fabricated or doctored Kamala Harris interview. So he ended up winning. I think it was about 16 million off of that. So not bad. Definitely a good step in the right direction because we all know how fugazi that was. And then finally, like I mentioned, this just broke earlier a few hours ago. As of Sunday, July 13th, 2025, we got the federal judge reverses the order on Biden debt. I think it was debt order. So I don't know if that was exactly student loan debt, but we can kind of look into that. So whoever, maybe as Pastor Green, if you want to go first, go ahead and tell me on here what topic you'd like to hit on first, or whichever combination. Yeah.
Well, I want to deal with the Supreme Court ruling
Okay.
on the 14th Amendment, the birthright citizenship issue. And,
Mm,
really, what President Trump is doing is he's bringing clarity to what this issue is, because as we know, people come to this country, and many times women come to this country just to have a baby to claim American citizenship. We call there's a term used for these children born here like that, anchor babies. But what Trump is doing is he's stopping the nonsense, because think about this. A lot of these officials, and I do mean officials, who are in places like LA and across the country, their parents were not here legally. And when I looked at this situation, a lot of them, when this birthright citizenship issue comes comes in order and comes to place, a lot of them are going to have to be deported also. So, you got millions of people who've been here for decades who should not have been here. And people don't even understand. And it really irritates me when black people try to say they know what birthright citizenship is and they talk about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment gave blacks, slaves, people who are slaves, citizenship. And it gave citizenship to their children. So that's what the 14th Amendment did. That's the whole basis of birthright. Blacks were in this country since the year 1521. I mean, let that sink in a minute. 1521, which makes all descendants of slaves FBAs, foundational black Americans. So when you hear the nonsense that stupid people like Ricky Smiley will say, "Oh, you better get ready because you're in trouble. You're going to get deported." How are we going to get deported? How are we going to be deported? We were,
Yeah, Ricky Smiley. He's just another one of the black boule, just gatekeepers. No different than Steve Harvey, or you know, you just can't even listen to Ricky Smiley. Like he's just beyond. Like he was the one with Kamala Harris in 2020. She was singing the lyrics to Atomic Dog, and yeah, oh Lord, oh, he just like me. So it's just another Democrat shill. As funny as he was, I used to watch his stand up, BET Comic View, and his radio show. But yeah, you can't even just take Ricky Smiley seriously. You gonna do what he's gonna do.
but
Yeah.
most of these so-called black leaders you can't take serious more. And we have to take the Democratic Party seriously because they are the ones who are really fooling people with their fear mongering
Mm-hmm.
and their intentional lies. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing that people need to realize, birthright citizenship was an issue pertaining to freed slaves and their descendants, their children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's it. No one else can claim birthright citizenship. So we have to understand, just like how other groups will try to take over in the civil rights movement. You see, the irony is black people are jumping up and down, yelling for things pertaining to them, and they don't even have to understand it. Just like the civil rights issue. That was civil rights was created for black people to end segregation and Jim Crow. That's it. No one else in this country since then can claim civil rights issues because
Mm-hmm.
no other groups have gone through the hardships and struggles of black people. Homosexuals cannot come and jump on that bandwagon. But birthright citizenship, plain and simple, was to give slaves citizenship in this country. And we should not allow other people to jump on that bandwagon and claim it for themselves because it's not meant for them. And I yield.
Amen. Amen, Pastor Green. And once again, it's kind of like what you mentioned about the civil rights, which was kind of, there's actually a new documentary that dropped by a guy. I don't know if y'all know a gentleman named Chad O. Jackson. I think he directed the first like Uncle Tom and Uncle Tom 2 documentary. He was interviewed recently on Jason Whitlock's podcast over at the Blaze. And unfortunately, once again, they just dive into. I'm sure you guys are pretty well versed on really MLK's communist ties, how he was funded by a couple of Zionist sort of Jewish backers. And basically, they wrote his speeches. They introduced him to a lot of people, even though basically when he went to Morehouse, even from the time he was in high school, he had a very liberal Marxist outlook, and he carried that to Morehouse. And really, unfortunately, I'm not saying his documentary is pretty spot on. And basically, he was hijacked, funded by the neoliberals to basically get a lot of black people to hop on this progressive Marxism, uh, lukewarm form of Christianity, this Marxist Christianity. And it was even, I think, this guy named Joseph A. Jackson, who the history books is totally wiped out. And he basically had to kind of stand against MLK because basically he was part of the National Baptist, I think, convention or association. And basically MLK did like a low key hostile takeover or tried to take it over. Then he ended up, starting his own thing. So I really say that to say the civil rights was well intentioned, but once again, it was under nefarious tentacles, if you will. And now what they've done is they're trying to mutate it where civil rights, once again, like you said, Pastor Green, it was meant for black people, for slaves. It was meant for black people to vote. And now it's, the LGBTQ are civil rights. But now undocumented citizens are civil rights. And civil rights has become this mutated sort of blanket or shield that everybody wants to come underneath that umbrella. And that's just not the case, along with this birthright citizenship. And this never should have been this way. But I can go on and on. But conspiracy brother, go ahead, give your thoughts on the birthright ruling. Step in the right direction.
Yeah, so it's that what's that LaPlante, that judge out of New Hampshire, has created a class out of all affected children being born. So I guess it's yet to be seen what the Supreme Court will do in response to this new interference, because that was the one avenue that they allowed for some type of universal injunction, right? Which is what they ruled on. They said that universal injunctions were not legal or constitutional. I guess not legal, but weren't constitutional, which is, I guess, the same thing. But if they wanted to have some type of nationwide injunctive relief process, you'd have to certify a class of injured individuals or whatever, and then you could establish a nationwide ruling concerning their interests. And so typically that takes, at least from a lot of the legal channels that I've watched, that takes years before you can certify a class of people and go through that process. And this judge appears to have done it over a matter of days. And the Justice Department requested the opportunity to have discovery, which is like the fact-finding process in the fact-finding investigative process in a legal proceeding, like a court proceedings, or I guess like maybe even it would be pre-trial proceedings. And the judge said, given the length of time, he couldn't allow for there to be discovery, but he would allow for the government to appeal. So, like, me and Pastor Grimm were talking about this. Can you hear me? Is it too much background noise?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So me and Pastor Green were talking about this, before you got here, and like backstage, and it's kind of about what that message I sent earlier yesterday or whatever. But it's so interesting how, even like you said illegal citizens, and I don't think you said it to be funny, and I don't think you said it, intentionally. I think it was more like a slip of the tongue kind of thing.
Right. Yep.
Conservative brother. But like, this is the kind of mind games that they have played on us for so long, that we are saying stuff like this and don't realize how that's a contradiction in terms. How can you have an illegal citizen? If you're illegal, you aren't a citizen. If you aren't a citizen, all matters of like civics, should not apply to you. They should not concern you. The goings and comings of the government, at least from domestic policy, should be of no concern. You're not a citizen. You're not a visitor. You're not a guest. You're a freeloader. And so to some degree, you know, like the expression, beggars can't be choosers. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth. You have to kind of, as a freeloader, accept whatever comes as a consequence of your condition for being here, or leave. You know, that is always an alternative that appears to escape these people, is that they can leave. And my little sister, you know, she's been watching a lot of videos of like deportees and deportations, and like on Instagram, people kind of documenting their deportation. And she said, you know, like she never really thought about it before, but she said what she's noticing is like they like to come to America because it's already, like, everything is already here. It's a ready-made country, essentially. And I said, yeah, that's true. I said, the problem is it's not ready-made by an act of God. It's ready-made because somebody already made it. Some people already died building it. People were already enslaved to put stuff together. And the people who fought for equality and civil rights, whatever you might think, have already fought that battle. Right? No matter what you think of Dr. King, you know, for me, he's a hero. That's, you know.
Same here with me.
in situations where, let's say, you know, and this is the tricky part about the history of the civil rights struggle and Jim Crow and segregation and that history of our country. When you have such evil, vile institutions like that to exist, even if he's a communist, let's say, you have ceded ground to a communist, allow him to become a national hero because the so-called good, upstanding, and so-called moral people were doing an evil thing. So who is at fault? The communist for picking up the slack and being able to say, hey, this is wrong, and I'm willing to give my life to shine a light on this evil so that it cannot continue, or the people who killed him who are not communists. You know, that so in those instances, whatever evil thing you can say about Dr. King that he did, I understand he was a man with flaws. He himself, you know, just based on my understanding of him as an individual, he would not want a day for himself in celebration. He would not want statues of himself. He considered himself a servant of the people, a servant of God, of Jesus Christ. That's how he saw himself, whether or not he was, you know, pretending or, you know, trying to evade or anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll share the documentary. Yeah, it's called MLK
Yeah.
in America's. I'll share it so you guys can look at it another day. But it goes deep.
But no matter. But at some point, we have to look at it from that perspective, right? The so-called moral people have ceded ground to a person who they say was immoral, and he has given his life to do a thing that we all in the world and on a global level in some capacity have benefited from. And so even these immigrants who have come to this country, even as you said, Pastor Green, when you look at the gay struggle or even I was thinking about my wife and her friend went to Iceland about 2 years ago. They went to Iceland, and they don't even have handicap ramps for people at like museums and stuff. So if you are in a wheelchair in Iceland, you are SOL if you got to get into a museum, because they don't have a Disabilities Act. I was going to say American with Disabilities Act, but they don't have an Icelandic People with Disabilities Act, right? Those kinds of things exist in this country because people marched and fought and died and said, you know, you should make America a place for everybody to have a place. Every American should be able to live in this country with some ease. And so that's what happened. And so then you have people who come up to this country because it is made in such a way as to benefit American citizens. That was the intention by all of these things. That is the, the implied intention of all of these things, they come here and they're willing, and this is the part that even I had just come to realize today, they are more willing to walk 3,000 miles. They are more willing to walk hundreds of miles and days at a time in the deserts of Arizona and Nevada and New Mexico with little to no food and water, with the risk of dying, than stay in their own home countries and fight to make those places better. That is what you see. And our politicians treat them better than they treat American citizens who pay taxes, who have worked and lived and died here, who have elected them, who have actually given them agency through the fact that we don't uprise and revolt in this country. This is, and I know this whole thing was about the birthright citizenship, and maybe I'm kind of taking it in a different direction, but this is what I have begun to see. No matter where these people come from, especially, there's been a lot of tension lately because a lot of, with the ICE raids and stuff, a lot of immigrants have been upset that Black Americans are not out in the streets protesting. But all of these people who have at different points throughout the years have said Black Americans have no culture. We have Black fatigue. Black Americans are lazy. Black Americans are good for nothing. Blah, blah, blah. Stay away from us, whatever, whatever. You have all been willing to put up with the risk of deportation, to put up with the risk of family separation, to be deported over and over and over again, to live under the constant threat of capture from ICE or some other type of law enforcement agency and deported, or to be extreme like Jasmine Crockett or other Democratic brainless mouthpieces, to be spirited away and hidden off in concentration camps that nobody knows where they are and will never be able to contact you. You are more willing to risk that than to fight to improve your homelands. And this is what we have to come to terms with. We have a people who are more willing to fight to stay here in a country that they all recognize wherever they come from is destabilizing their homeland than they are to fight to fix their homeland. And this is a problem. This is really a problem. Because then they're willing to, because they have no personal responsibility or obligation to their countries of birth, to their civilizations and cultures. I even told my little sister, to be funny, you are willing to come to America and sacrifice access to the food and seasonings that you're used to, right? Like they said when they were in New York and they were getting food from Eric Adams, and then he started giving them thousands of dollars worth of food stamps because all the immigrants who were coming up said that they couldn't get the foods that they were accustomed to. You are willing to leave all the food and good memories that you have of home to sit in a shelter in New York City or Chicago in the wintertime, and you're from the equator, than to fight. And this is my last point, and I'll stop because I know I get really long-winded, and I appreciate you brothers for giving me this space.
Take your time.
But even
keep going.
You've heard in the news, and this is a lie, this is not true, but you've heard, in New York and Brooklyn, ICE went to go get the Haitians, and the Haitians fought back. The Haitians expect you to believe, or the netizens of the world, the pro-black or whatever you want to call them, I don't know. I don't really understand, right? Because it doesn't make sense to me. But they would have you believe that these Haitian people in Brooklyn who are to be deported are better equipped, more capable, more willing to fight the U.S. government in America than they are in Haiti. Their president was assassinated, 4 years ago? They have been in a state of instability since. It has been never completely verified, but hypothesized that the president was assassinated with the help of the U.S. government, like two Venezuelan guys and like an American, or two Venezuelans and a Colombian and a Venezuelan, like mercenaries, and like an American guy. But you expect me to believe that Haitian people are better equipped to fight the American government in America than they are in Haiti? If that's true, let me give it to you and say, okay, it's true. If that's true, why? Because to me, what this says is you never should have gotten free from France. And right now, you should beg France to make you a colony again so that you could be under the thumb of somebody who knows how to better run a country. That's what you're saying. Even to be more vulgar about it, you are better ruled under the thumb of some white colonial power. That's what that says to me. You are safer. You are better managed, right? You are more organized. You are happier under the thumb of a white colonial power. That's the first thing. But the second thing, if I use my brain just a bit, how can that make sense? Of all the various ways the U.S. government could cut power and fresh water and access to food or medicine or anything to smoke you out, to, essentially to lay siege to you in this small area of Brooklyn that they would want. We're going to cut off all the exits and entrances and alleyways and streets and make sure anybody coming in and out, we verify who they are. If they don't have adequate identification, they're being detained. If they have adequate identification and it checks out, they're free to go. And if they don't, we're detaining them. That's simple. How many days can you live? You can only survive 3 days without water and a week without food. They cut the water, they cut the power. What's going to happen? So again, thank you again for giving me this time to kind of go through all this. To speak on the 14th Amendment, I think this is another example, and it's very interesting since we always talk about it, of the Democratic Party taking something that was meant to benefit Black people and bastardizing it so that it hurts us in the long run, which is what happened with the 14th Amendment. Mm-hmm. Andrew Johnson was a Democrat. After Lincoln was assassinated, he was the vice president. He became the president. All of the Reconstruction work that Lincoln was doing to try to reestablish a unity in the country post-Civil War, Andrew Johnson stopped it.
And so conspiracy brother, I wanted to just for a little history lesson for those. Back then, if a Republican and a Democrat ran for president and then that party won the presidency, then the loser of that presidential election becomes the vice president. So this wasn't the running mate days. So people wonder like, well, Andrew Johnson was a Democrat. Yeah, so back in those days when Abe Lincoln won, who was a Republican presidential ticket, then Andrew Johnson, the Democrat presidential ticket, he became the VP under Lincoln. So I just wanted to just explain that context in case people didn't know. Yeah.
So you had an influx of immigration after the Civil War, even during the Civil War. Look up the draft riots of 1863. It kind of is detailed in the latter half of the movie, The Gangs of New York, which is also a book. But you had immigration, and it was used to undermine, Black labor even then. Even white working class labor in America, native white working class labor and Black labor were being undermined by immigration even in the 1800s. And so you had this great influx, and it created a situation where we can use the 14th Amendment now to make these people's children citizens. So you intended to do this to make black people American, and the Democratic Party will say, now we can bring in more people and make them American and completely turn this on its head. And now, the Democrats are still in that same vein, destroying us with this policy. So I'll stop there. Thank you all again.
And conservative brother, I just want to make a point on something before we move to the next topic. And I want to talk about Martin Luther King because he was a hero. I consider Martin Luther King a hero of mine. It's amazing to me that when people die and can't speak for themselves, that's when all things come out about them, which I consider just totally just insane at times. Because the Bible says, render honor to whom honor is to be given. And in the case of Martin Luther King, now they're trying to say, all right, he's a communist, whatever. All right. Martin Luther King dealt with a situation that was not political, but it was satanic. And what do I mean? It was satanic and not political. People were being hung for the color of their skin. That was black people. Black people could not vote. Why? Because they were black in the South. And I know that God raised up Martin Luther King to deal with those situations. They didn't hang black people because of their political affiliation. They did not hang black people and discriminate against black people in this country because of who they wanted to sleep with. But when God raised up Martin Luther King and the people that fought with him, I don't think people today have enough conviction to do what him and others did. And we see that today. People talk like it's like that James Brown song, talking loud but saying nothing. A lot of people talk loud and they ain't saying nothing. They're not doing nothing. But when I look at the sacrifice and the perseverance of that man, I mean, you look at how they were attacked on the bridges, how the buses were being burned, how they were attacked by dogs, water hoses, in jail, just so that we can have the freedoms that we enjoy now. And then we call this man a communist? No. To me, he will always be and forever be, in my mind, a hero. Because we wouldn't be, if it wasn't for him and the others who fought for civil rights with him, that generation, we would not be free today. So I just think we owe a reverence to him. And I get so sick with a lot of this revisionist history. We keep repeating what J. Edgar Hoover said. Oh, Martin Luther King, he was a womanizer. We got tapes on him, with other women. Well, have you ever heard the tapes? And someone as evil as J. Edgar Hoover, if he had them, he would have used them. So I just think, we need to reverence certain people such as Martin Luther King. Because it wasn't for him and the generation that stood with him, we would not enjoy the freedoms that we have today. And I yield.
All right. So our next topic, and we have here Democrat socialist Zohran Mamdani. It is very interesting that conspiracy brother, when you mentioned uh, about the fact that, yeah, once again, like if we live in a kind of a white colonizer or just like in general just a authoritarian capitalistic society, what has gone wrong in this country the past 50, 60 decades that sort of fertilized the soil to where we now have, like, once again, it could have been, and once again with MLK, while he had communist Marxist ties, I don't agree with. And I do agree there is a part of his legacy that we have to hold because it does mean a special place for black people. This is uncomfy truths. So definitely I do see the need for us to address with Mamdani here the fact that, like, while I don't agree with any of his policies and all the potential harm he could do for New York City, he was the only one that during a debate, I think it was debate against I think a couple other people, and they were like, "Hey, if you could visit any country, and give us your, your foreign aid plan, what would that be?" And then like everyone just on point. Israel. Oh, we need to protect Israel. They're our greatest ally. They get the Mamdani. This guy's like, I wouldn't go anywhere. I would stay right here and focus on home. And I think that was a key catalyst that had him win that primary. Once again, I don't. He's Democrat socialist. Ideas are terrible. It's not. There's been plenty of breakdowns on just the things. Basically, he was cheering on defunding the police, all this other stuff, even before the summer 2020 riots. But he was at least smart enough to know, even though he's a Trojan horse for a lot of these New York normies, that he even saw it was important enough to show that, hey, home matters, domestic matters. So he's kind of playing. He's playing a lot of the playbook of a lot of politicians in the past on, like, hey, I'm all about home and defending that. So that is kind of part of why I think he won that primary. Once again, his ideas are terrible, and I think he's playing the Obama card as well. There's been videos that come out of him code switching and all this sort of stuff. The Obama Kamala, he was born here but raised there, and he can go over here and code switch here, and the reporters calling her out. So once again, like, if anybody want to give their thoughts on Mamdani, and once again, I'm sure we probably don't agree on what he's trying to do and uh, what uh, what trap he's walking New York into. But yeah, just give everybody's thoughts about why you think he's ahead now and he beat Cuomo.
Well, first of all, when we talk about this being his home, he wasn't born here.
Right.
I believe his parents were originally from South Africa, and then he just became a U.S. citizen, I believe, about 4 or 5 years ago, legally.
Yep. 6 years ago.
Okay,
Mhm.
so he's not from here. And see, if you look at his base support is white liberal women. And one of the things about white liberal women, I think they're one of the most confused group of people in this country. I just even hate to listen to them
Mhm.
because these are the people who make no sense, but they have some of the loudest voices, and that's his base. And we know, again, we got to be careful because what does he promote more than anything else? Islam. And I don't care what anybody say. Anybody who has their eyes and ears open know that Islam is a great threat to the security and the stability of America. And if you want to see a perfect example, all you got to do is look at England. All right. You look at European countries, they are becoming destabilized year by year, month by month. Why? Because of the Islamic presence in their country. And the thing I remember is 9/11. I remember when it happened. I remember being down at ground zero for over a month on assignment, digging through that rubble, pulling out body parts. That's Islam. That's Islam. And is that what we really want to give power to in this country? These people tell you, Muslim Islamists tell you, what do they want to do? Bring about Sharia law, make changes in America, bring down America. And this is what is happening. So you got a 32-year-old wannabe rapper, might be the mayor of New York. This just shows you how foolish people have become. But I don't think he will win because I think there's enough people waking up saying, hold it, hold it, hold it. Now we're going too far in the wrong direction. Because people I talk to living in New York now, and I've been in New York all my life, they're like saying, this is crazy. He's promising things that a mayor doesn't even have the authority to do. Free bus rides. I mean, a $30 minimum wage. What kind of nonsense is that? You see? So, and then on the other hand, if he did win, he would have New York in total chaos. Well, New York is already in total chaos, but I really believe in 18 months after he's in office, New York would be totally devastated from within. So this is the thing, and we talked about this in our past conversations. I don't believe anybody that's not born here should be holding public office in this country, because you do not know the ways, you do not assimilate. All he's concerned about is Islam. And Islam is a threat to this country. Now, somebody might listen to this and say, oh, Pastor Green, that's hate speech. Well, let me ask you this. What group of people, what religion do you see that will put people in cages and burn them to death because they don't agree with their religious belief? What group have you seen will line people up on beaches and stand behind them with machine guns and shoot them dead? What group do you see will actually have a hostage, an American hostage? I mean, it was Sandy Berger about 10 years ago. What did they do? Beheaded him, made a video of them beheading him. What kind of people act like this? See, Islam disguises itself as religion, but it's really a terrorist movement. Because by their own book, their own doctrine, the Quran, they say if you're not a believer, you're considered an infidel. And infidels are only worthy of death. Meaning, an infidel to them, those who will not accept Islam are only worthy of death. And they mean that. And foolishly, people are embracing this. Oh, can't we get along? No, we can't all get along. Because you have people who have this philosophy and that they are willing to die for it. You better realize what we're getting ourselves into. And we better take a collective stand against this. My whole view on this is, listen, let them all have the Middle East to themselves, and we just leave them alone. Because this is really getting out of hand, and this is getting out of control. And when you see these liberals, these crazy people who want to say, "Oh, you're being Islamophobic," listen, phobia means an unjustified belief or unjustified fear. But my reservations about Islam are not unjustified. They're verified. They're verifiable, if anything. And we better start waking up to what we are allowing to take strongholds in this country. You go to Dearborn, Michigan. They have that whole section of Michigan. They just taken over. These people have never come here to assimilate. They are not here to be a part of the American dream, but their goal is to be the American nightmare. And we better wake up. And I yield.
Amen. Couldn't have put it any better. Conspiracy brother, your thoughts on the Mamdani pandemonium? Democrats are, melting their hearts over.
Well, I think. Give me 1 second.
Mm.
So, see, that's the thing for me, man. I wonder, like, is this all a part of some plan? Because you can't have really thought Andrew Cuomo was going to win. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know even who else was running, but I gotta agree with Pastor Green, at least in the respect that I have said this before. You should not be able to hold office in the United States, and I even say, government jobs above a certain level, like entry level, like you have to be, almost like a
staffer.
Yeah, low level management is the highest level you can be if you weren't 3 generations in this country.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like you can always have an allegiance to another place. Like I said earlier, you think about, like, even you see a lot of with the since we were talking about the 14th Amendment earlier, a lot of Democratic pundits have been trying to fearmonger black people and say, hey, if they can deport such and such illegal immigrant, they can deport us next. and the question you always have to ask is, to where? Because as Pastor Green said, not only have we been in this country at least in this land at least since the 1500s, but the places that those of us who were taken from Africa are not even around today. The countries that exist today did not exist in the same boundaries even 120 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Nigeria wasn't called Nigeria. Ghana wasn't called Ghana. The Ivory Coast wasn't called the Ivory Coast, right? And so where would you send us to? There have been in centuries. Now I'm doing my own family tree, and I haven't been messing with it for a while, but I have traced my family without really doing a lot of deep diving and looking at like family artifacts and stuff, but just online, like census data. I have traced my mother's father's family to 18. What is it? I've got like 18. They were born in 1880 something, 1883. It was my great grandparents born in 18. I've got their marriage certificate. I found, online. They were married in 1901 or 1906. I've got their marriage certificate. Where they had parents. At the very least, their parents, if their parents were not slaves, their parents, because if they were born in 1883, 20 years prior to that was slavery, right? So if their parents weren't slaves because they had them so very young, their grandparents were slaves, right? Where are you going to send my family back? Where are you going to send me to? What country? And this is the thing they don't understand, when you've heard a lot of these conversations. But this fear-mongering goes on. I'll try to bring it back to what we're talking about. But this fear-mongering goes on. And so the fear-mongering happens, and it's like, well, it's not going to work on us. This doesn't happen. This doesn't matter. I don't have dual citizenship. I don't wave another flag. The only flag that I have any allegiance to, whether I wave it or not, whether I am 100% satisfied with this country or not, is the American flag. I am not secretly hoping or conniving to try to enrich another country somewhere. The only country I have an interest in, the only country I have a connection to, is this one.
If I run for office, the only interest of the country that I want to enrich is this.
America first, baby. America first.
Well, yes, but America only.
America only.
You know what I'm saying? I don't have anybody else. I don't have a great grandparent who, oh yeah, they came from, Germany or whatever. And so, I know the village they came from in Germany. I don't have that. My people's from Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida. That's what I know. I have some people from Pennsylvania, but that's what I know. That's why, like Pastor Green said, foundational Black American. That's where my people are from. They're from here. And for so long, I when I was younger, I felt like ashamed, like I was supposed to know more. Like when you meet Black people from other countries, where are you from? What country? What tribe? Blah blah blah. I'm from here. I'm from the country you immigrated to. Your ancestry, your country, your tribe, your language is so great. You moved to the country that I'm from. Your country is so great. Your history is so wonderful. Your culture is so amazing. You gave it all away to come here and live with me in mine. The country I'm already from. You love it so much, you had your children here. You didn't even go and birth them where you're from so they could have the citizenship and the cultural tie of being a native to where you're from.
I wonder why.
They're American like I am. Not exactly like I am, right? Because I'm foundational. But they're American too. And that's the kind of thing you have to think about. Now, as far as Mamdani, I think he's from Uganda, right? I think that's where he was born, Uganda. Because a lot of Indians, after the British kind of outlawed like colonialism and stuff and slavery, what they would do is they would go get Indians and they would bring them to the colony. So that's why you have so many Indians in like the West Indies. So Jamaica, like, if I'm not mistaken, Trinidad is like 50% Indian. From India, because they would bring a lot of Indian laborers. So you have a lot of Indians in South Africa. You have a lot of Indians in East Africa. You have a lot of Indians, like even in, they've really spread out all over the world at this point. But that's what ended up happening. The British would bring Indians to countries where they used to have slaves or colonialism. And after they got rid of that colonialism or whatever, or the harshness of slavery and colonialism, they would bring in Indians who they would still mistreat, but they would get them to do. So Mamdani's family, he's Pakistani, which Pakistan and India were one country until the British left India. Then they split them up because they have religious differences, because Pakistan is Muslim and India is Hindu. And then guess what? Mamdani, because he's from Africa, I think he filled out like he was trying to go to Colombia. He put on his application that he was African American.
Yep. Remember that. Yep.
Which is a trick weasel word that doesn't mean anything. And most foundational Black Americans or descendant of freedmen, whatever you want, ADOS people, however you want to call it, should step away from that word, because it is meaningless that an Indian man can call himself a African American and not be lying, right?
Or Elon Musk,
right?
African American,
right? But yeah, I mean, a guy who's been an American for 6 years should not be able to run for mayor of any American city, let alone one of the largest, most important American cities in the country. That's ridiculous. As far as his policies go, I mean, how I feel, that should be irrelevant. I wouldn't care if he had a plan to fix New York. You are unqualified by birth. Give an American the plan and let him work it out. But you should not be qualified to do the job. I'm not saying I believe he has a plan. I'm saying I have not even invested in his plan because I don't believe he should be qualified to do the job. I think dual citizenship in this country should be illegal. You can't have dual citizenship in India. And I sent a story not long ago. There was a Nobel Prize winner. He was German. He won the Nobel Prize while working on like physics or something in the Netherlands. And so he got Dutch citizenship. And then he was working also in the UK later. And so he was given Dutch they wanted to give him a title. They wanted to knight him. And in the UK, if you aren't a UK citizen, when you're knighted, all you can do is use the title of sir or lady, but you can't use I think you can't get any like some kind of privileges that come, like I think land, or I can't remember what it is, but it's something like that. You can only be called a sir or whatever, but you can't receive any of the other benefits. So he accepted UK citizenship just to be knighted and get the full benefits. And when the Netherlands government found out about it recently, this happened a while ago, like some years ago, they told him that he had to turn in his passport. And so America wants you to believe, or the Democrats or whoever wants you to believe, that it's outlandish that a person who comes into the country illegally and is asked to leave is being forced to leave, when in Europe, a country that is a part of their visa-free zone gets citizenship to another country, a part of their visa-free zone, and they revoke his citizenship to the other country. And he's like considered a national hero because he got a Nobel Prize for this country. And he really only got citizenship to the UK kind of symbolically so that he could be knighted and receive the full benefits of knighthood. And so, you know, you live in this weird world where what is normal everywhere else in the world, America expects you to just act like is criminal behavior. Go to Japan without a passport and see if they let you stay. See if they let you leave the airport.
See if they let you out with your body part.
Right. Right. I have a few organs missing.
Go to China and don't have a visa and see what happens. But here they expect you to believe people who've been here incorrectly with orders for deportation, they've been here 30 years, that makes it okay. Oh, well, you know, you've been here long enough. I guess we just got to make you a citizen.
But Jose been working at a farm. He's been at this farm, little Jose, for 15 years. Ain't bother nobody.
Right. And that doesn't apply to any American citizen. No American citizen gets to break the law long enough that it's legal.
Right.
Well, you've been a serial killer for 20 years and we didn't find you. So I guess you free to go.
All right. He just got a little job by himself. He ain't killed nobody in, 15 years.
Right. So it's all just lunacy to me. And like I said, it makes me wonder if this was the setup all along. You can't tell me nobody was better for that job than Chris Cuomo's brother.
Yeah.
The brother, the governor of New York, who had to step down for Me Too, but probably should have been put in jail for all those people that got killed because he put COVID patients in housing with people in nursing homes, the most vulnerable from COVID.
Yeah, I never thought I even have to consider Eric Adams. Like, I don't live in New York, but to see Eric Adams as a more reasonable option, that wasn't on my bingo card for 2025.
That's mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling.
That was not on my bingo card.
It's mind-boggling. That's how desperate the situation is, that you have to consider re-electing Eric Adams.
Right. And all the like Republicans establishment putting their money behind him. But yeah, great conspiracy, brother. Great breakdown. We gotta probably move on. Our topic's running a little over. I just want to give a quick update, like I said, about Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Ramone, Jackson. Obviously, they're doing the Lord's work with all the Detroit corruption going on. I went by one of their recent meetings, and basically, it's just more of the same. It's once again they're starting to, They're working on that pushback. They're still getting from the Trump administration. Like, well, let's not worry about that right now. How too many times we heard that when a new administration comes in. And they find it very interesting how really, and it kind of goes back to our point about how a lot of these, it's like a weird way where we end up getting these people that get elected over us, or somehow the establishment or whatever it is puts these other people from different races over us. So anywhere from Rashida Tlaib, who a lot of black folks are kind of just swooning over in Detroit. She's one of the congressional reps, around Detroit, Dearborn area. Even a Shri Thinadar. And what's funny is that Shri Thinadar runs the only, I think it was majority black district in Detroit. So you got this 70-year-old Indian guy that came over here about 30 years ago, once again, not born citizen, who's repping for the largest majority black district in Detroit. How did that happen? And they broke down, which is really interesting, about how just the corruption behind, Garland Gilchrist, even though he's kind of just a woke Democrat as well. Basically, he's a lieutenant governor underneath Gretchen Whitmer. There was a lot of corruption they unveiled on how they cheated him out. And him, along with like Senator Adam Hollier, or not senator, like still candidate Adam Hollier, it's like they'll play the game. But how racist is it where there's a lot of these candidates that got the votes, that had more votes. And then it turns out, when you go to these neighborhoods, especially the district neighborhoods for Shri Thinadar, you ask everybody, nobody's like, I didn't vote for this guy. Like, who is this? Who is this old Indian guy with a Justin Bieber haircut? Like, nobody voted for him. So you see this pattern over and over again, where once again, these people are getting selected. And then what they talked about is how one of the keys, what they're doing is that when people move out of state, and a lot of these votes where people end up getting marked as absentee because they move out of state, they don't change their address, and they've been pushing for Ramone and Pastor Sewell. They've been pushing for audits where they can go in and see, like, hey, how come you're not clearing these voter rolls for these people that moved away, for these people that went away to college and haven't moved back home, and it goes deep. And I could share. I don't have the notes in front of me. I like to take a lot of notes of it, but just wanted to kind of report on that, on how it's still a fight. It's still a local fight that everybody, even Pastor Green, where you are. I'm not sure how entwined you are, your new home in Pennsylvania and in the local there, but I'm sure there's still that level of corruption happening in Pennsylvania, and maybe around the city you in. So I just kind of bring that up to say that we still got to remember the fight at the local level. And there's some people that, Ramona Lorenzo's been helping out. They're trying to run for like local school board seats and school board and, the city council. And it just runs deep, everything that's going on. So I just wanted to kind of report on that. And then finally, before we move on, we got the Trump Paramount CBS News lawsuit that Trump won. Obviously, that Kamala Harris interview last year, where basically they recut answers and they basically doctored the hell out of that video. And basically, she's saying things. It's kind of old news by now, but at the same time, if anybody had any thoughts on the Trump win for CBS and kind of what they did, surprise, surprise, feel free. Anybody has their thoughts on that?
But wasn't the amounts in the low billions for that?
16 million, I think he won settlement. 16 million. 16 million. Yep.
Well, I'll let conspiracy brother elaborate on that. But I thought that was in low billions because I know that was the.
Maybe I'm off on the amount. Cause yeah, it says right here, Trump wins 16 million settlement over edited Kamala Harris interview on CBS. So yeah, 16 million. So a little bit of chump change, but it can go toward some use. Not too little, too late, but
I think I think he might have been suing for more,
Maybe they just awarded him that. But I know he sued ABC and got quite a bit from like George Stephanopoulos, saying
Oh
that he
yeah,
raped
yeah, that one was
Nigerian
bigger.
girls.
Yeah,
So
I think
yeah,
that was like in
that
the
could have been it.
high
But I
eight
mean,
figures. Yeah.
I have no sympathy for any of these people because they have, all after he was out of office, they spent all this time talking about how no one's above the law, and they tried to portray themselves as the law and order party and all this stuff. And now we see that when the shoe's on the other foot, they don't like it so much, So I don't really have a lot more information. I did hear about this, and it's interesting that they actually, had to pay out because of what they ultimately did, which is, you know, doctor an interview to make her seem more coherent than she was, and it still didn't work because she is not the president. People could still see through that.
Yep. So So F
Even with the
around.
help of AI, she still seems stupid.
Right. Right.
Yeah, ain't no fixing Auntie Kamala.
Nah.
To give her credit though, like if anything, Kamala to me is kind of like that drunk hip auntie, with her little glass of wine at a reunion, and it's kind of like with Stephen A. Smith, it's kind of like I could have a fun conversation with these people, Stephen A. or Kamala, you know, but once it reaches, because you're a personality, like in Stephen A.'s case, like you talk sports, which once again we like sports, but end of the day it's not consequential. If the NBA, if the NBA, if the OKC Thunder wins this year, it's not consequential on my everyday life. Or if the NBA commissioner decides that to get rid of the 3-point shot is not uh is not impactful on my everyday life. So that's where I don't have a problem with Stephen A. But when Stephen A, who's now getting touted about as this candidate, now you're crossing the line of okay, you could reach a level, whether you end up being a VP or whatever it is, where now you're affecting my everyday life. You're no longer just that auntie or uncle at the barbecue or that, that cool personality. So once again, I think Kamala, at the end of the day, you know, she has a funny little auntie like vibe, but I just don't want her as my president. And glad we dodged the bullet there. All right,
Well,
so
I wouldn't even disrespect Auntie like that by comparing her to Kamala Harris.
well, yeah. I mean, but you know what I
That
mean.
woman was
Yeah,
a disaster.
right. Because either way, she as a politician, she's done some dirt. All right, y'all. So once again, you guys are listening to Uncomfy Truths. Feel free to follow us on Rumble as well as YouTube. And we are also on Odyssey. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. We talk the nitty gritty in here. And if somebody else doesn't say it, then we will. So here's our subtopic menu list. We got Elon Musk still upset over that big, beautiful bill passing. He is cutting up. He's had it with Trump and the Republicans. So guess what? He wants to start his own America party. Uh, what we spoke about earlier, Pastor Green, I got it right here. The Mexico City protesters protesting against the gentrification of their city. So, they got these remote workers coming in, raising the rents and all that. So, yeah, they're not liking it when certain people come over to their country and now it inconveniences them. But, these are the same people that are turn around and advocate for their cousins or whoever it is coming in our country and making things bad for us in a different way. So open border hypocrites. We have, on a smaller culture war level, we have there's just more pushback against Marvel. They had this new sort of this new Black woman Iron Man show that flopped, based off a character from I think Black Panther 2. So, we can kind of dive on that a little bit. There's a bit of the once again the Black woke feminist agenda, and there's backlash left and right. Obviously, we got the Diddy verdict. I got some nuanced thoughts on that. Karen Bass saying she wants to offer cash assistance for illegal migrants harassed by ICE. So LA taxpayers keep voting for that nonsense. Glad I got out of there. UPenn, Leah Thomas, the party's over. Leah Thomas has basically had her medals revoked. UPenn is now recognizing what we've been saying all along here for a minute, that biological men can't be in women's sports. Violation of Title IX. So, and then finally, we got a couple, once again, a little uncomfy truth situations that I think we have to address, whether we're talking about maybe MLK and some new information coming to light, or if it is things coming up around in our own city. Sometimes we got to pull back the subfloor and go, yeah, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but there's a reason we need to talk about it, or it's going to keep happening. So basically, we had some, 4th of July street takeover, which I'm sure happens. It happens in every city. I get it. But then we also had a case of a Detroit McDonald's employee that basically stabbed their manager to death. So once again, it's uncomfy truths. Sorry, we got to go there, but it's what the show's for. But starting out, if anybody wants to touch on a topic, Pastor Green, we'll start with you. Go right ahead. Whatever topic you want to touch on. We're not going to probably get to all of them, but whatever ones you want to start on, Pastor Green.
Well, this whole thing with Elon Musk wanting to start a political party, we have to look at the reason for that. This is someone who's just trying to have his way. And again, it goes back to what we have already said. People who are not born here or do not have 3 generations should not be having a say in our government. But his problem with the big, beautiful bill was a lot of tax breaks were taken out of that bill that would benefit his pocket. Because if I remember correctly, one of the tax breaks that was eliminated out of that tax bill was for electric vehicles. Tax breaks for electric vehicles. That was what Biden wanted to have, but Trump didn't want to keep that. So that cost him billions of dollars. Also, part of what he's mad about is that he didn't get his recommendations for who should run NASA. But this whole thing with this big, beautiful bill, again, you have people making up lies and distorting the truth. Now, what can I relate to? This whole thing, well, there's 11 million people that won't have Medicare. Well, first of all, the issue with Medicare that the bill wanted to target, you have over 2 million illegals getting Medicare.
Yeah.
Over 2 million. So again, we come right back to what? Illegal aliens. I don't even call them migrants. I call them aliens because they don't belong here. And people need to understand that Medicaid is for seniors and people with disabilities, and they're not going to be touched. They're not. And one of the provisions that says about Medicare, well, if you receive Medicare and you're younger, if you're not a senior citizen, then you have to work at least, I believe it was 80 hours a month. Well, what's wrong with that? If you're able, if you can work, then go to work. But this whole thing again with fear, I'm talking about 11 million people going to lose Medicare. No, 11 million people will not, because listen, there's people who are reaching retirement age, who are becoming elderly every day, and they're not going to lose their benefits. But again, just like with Social Security, Medicare, we got illegals getting Social Security benefits, getting Medicare benefits, and it needs to stop. So the whole thing that the mainstream media is not going to tell you is this bill is going to cut the waste in Medicaid and not the people who deserve it. And I yield.
Amen, amen. Conspiracy brother, your thoughts? We got a lot of topics to get to, but I'd love to get your thoughts on Elon Musk starting the America Party while we're on the topic.
Well, like Pastor Green said, you know, he shouldn't even be getting involved. What was it? Episode 2 or episode 1 or episode 3? We talk about, is he a Trojan horse?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have never been a fan of his because I'm anti-worker. And, you know, that's my reason. That's my first reason. But you shouldn't be involved. I don't care how much money he makes. I don't care how much added value he thinks he brings to this country. If you bring so much added value, why couldn't you have done this in South Africa? There's a reason you do it here. You are a guest. You should be glad to be here. There's a reason that even with the amount of money you haven't left this country and you haven't gone to Canada, where he also has citizenship from his mother, or somewhere in Europe, or back to South Africa. You are still a guest. You should behave as such. Like you said, we need to put on some merch. Non-citizens should be non-issues. Right?
Yep. Gotta get those shirts.
So I don't care that he's a citizen, right? I don't care that you are a citizen, but you are here because we offer in this nation a benefit to you that you don't even have, even with the vast amounts of money that you have in your homeland. You're not even, and this is again what I'm talking about, he's not even interested in improving the infrastructure of his homeland.
They never are. Seems like they just want to come here.
Go build up South Africa. Couldn't you build a space program in South Africa for a fraction of what we pay here? Couldn't you bring Indians to South Africa to work for a fraction of what we would have to pay to even have them do the work here? But even in this situation, what you are paying for is the American infrastructure. You know that if you do a job in America and if you pay for a job in America and the job is not completed satisfactorily, there is recourse for you to be compensated or to find recompense for that injury or inconvenience that you may not have in India, that you may not have easily even in South Africa, even as one of the richest people on the planet. And still, rather than invest the energy and resources into building that in your homeland, you would rather just come here to eat off of a plate that you did not prepare.
Make your own plate.
Right. Cook your own food. You know, it's just like the story of the little red hen. Who will help me plant the wheat? Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the cow. Not I, said the duck. Who will help me, water the wheat? Who will help me harvest? Who will help me mill it? Who will help me bake it? Who will help me eat the bread? I will, said the duck. I will, said the dog. I will, said the cat. And the red hen said, no, you will not. Because at every step in the process, you all were too lazy to help out. And so if you were not willing to put in the effort, you do not get to enjoy the spoils. And if I am so gracious as to give you some of the spoils, even some of the crumbs, then you should just be quiet and enjoy them as much as you can, because you had nothing to lose. But people don't have that. Like I said earlier, like the expression, you never lift a gift horse in the mouth. That comes from, you can, tell the health of a horse by its teeth. And so if you are purchasing a horse, you look at his teeth, look at his mouth, and look at his teeth and see if it's a good enough horse to, keep. Is this worth it? But if somebody's giving you a horse for free, it's rude to say, well, is this horse even worth taking? Just take it. It's a gift. Beggars can't be choosers. If you're on the street, I remember when I was in Atlanta, man, there was a lady, and I was riding my bike a lot, and so I was on the subway, and so I was riding my bike, but I stopped and I was on the subway, so I had like a fanny pack, and I had like granola bars and stuff in there, and like Nutri-Grain bars and protein bars and stuff. And so a lady came up to me on the train. She was walking up the train and asking people for money. And she said she was hungry. So I reach in my bag and pull out a granola bar. And she says to me, "Ain't you got $1?" And so I put my granola bar back in my pouch and I zipped it back up and I went on doing what I was doing. Because if you're hungry, I have food. If you want $1 for something else, I don't have that. But if you're hungry, I have food. If America is bad, and I'll be the first to tell you it has problems, as does every other country. It has problems, and I'd like those problems to improve. But if America is so bad, go back home. Looks like Pastor Green might have dropped off. Oh, no. Nope. Conservative brother dropped off. But yeah, if America is so bad, go back home.
Agreed. And the irony is, they say it is estimated that we have 50 to 60 million illegals in this country, right? So if we was to get them all out of here, you wouldn't have homelessness. You have more than enough to take care of the people who belong in America, who are true American citizens. I mean, that would alleviate many of the problems in America if you get out those who do not legally belong here.
Well,
Man,
since
I
you bring
cut
that
out-
up, yeah,
I cut out
You did.
conspiracy brother right after you said the homeless lady felt a little too entitled. Like, I need $1 from you, not the granola bar. Then I cut out.
Oh, well, yeah. So I put my
leave and
granola
come
bar back
back.
in my pouch. I put my granola bar back in my pouch. I zipped my pouch up and I stopped dealing with her. I went back to riding my train. But Pastor Green, what you said, I was watching, I think it was Tim Black, and he was talking about how much, when they talk about, the cost of rent has gone up, the cost of housing has gone up, the cost of vehicles have gone up. And one of the things that is probably, he said probably because he didn't give numbers, but one of the things that is probably driving that increase is the government funding and paying for illegal immigrants and immigrants, low-income people, not American citizens, to live in housing, to have apartments, to have houses, and to have cars. Just in the last 2 months, 3 months, me and my wife have noticed an apparent, even my neighbor, but an apparent influx of what seemed to be South American immigrants in Detroit, in my side of Detroit, in my part of Detroit. I've heard about them in other parts.
I see him
Where
in
I live
Pontiac
Detroit.
too. I see him in Pontiac too.
Yeah. And they all have newish or new cars, Escalades, pickup trucks, F-150s. Dodge Rams. Where are you getting the money to buy these things or lease these things? But that will offset the market for American people because the government can just continue to borrow and borrow and borrow against itself. And the American people who do not take advantage of these systems and these programs are always shut out. You have, like I said in the first segment, we have politicians fighting for non-citizens to find, this is what, I mean, definitionally, reparations. Karen Bass has authorized a policy of reparations for non-citizens in LA.
Unbelievable.
Yep. There you have it.
But again, conspiracy bro, we when we were talking before the podcast started, they're talking about paying these illegals money because of law enforcement. Trump
doing their job.
So, and this is what we were saying about Black Americans who support Democrats when all these men and women went to jail for being hooked on crack as a result of the Biden crime bill. While their husbands was in jail, was there any relief offered to the mothers whose husbands were going to be in jail? To the children whose fathers were going to be in jail? You see, this is the lunacy of Black people supporting the Democratic Party. Because all of a sudden now, there's an argument of reparations. But with all the money that's so far been spent on illegals, you could have took care of the issue of reparations. But you're giving all this money to people who do not belong here. And they're here illegally. You look at the congressman who went over to Maryland over an illegal. But what home has he been to in America over someone who's been killed by an illegal? What condolences has he made? You see, this whole thing with the Democratic Party needs to be made obsolete. It really needs to be.
Yeah, man. And conspiracy brother, if you could put the my screen share, my browser tapped out, so I had to leave and come back. But yeah, just back to Elon Musk. I mean, everybody made such great points about how once again we just get this continued subversion of American politics with these foreign invaders, whether they're more subtle like Elon Musk or Rashid Tlaib or Ilhan Omar, or obviously the legal migrants coming over and they're getting every little handout they can. And once again, on Elon Musk, once again, we said it before. We called it out early about Elon Musk, Trojan horse of savior. And the fact that I'll get to what I still appreciate about Elon Musk. I appreciate Doge. I appreciate the exposure of the USAID and Act Blue and all the frivolous fraud, waste, and abuse. I still appreciate that. I think at the end of the day, Elon Musk realized that this is politics, and he really should have just played his position or stuck to his position that we all liked. Because at the end of the day, Elon Musk going back years, this was a guy who lied about how great he was at, like, I think a Fortnite game, like little bitty things about, like, I'm the top scorer in Fortnite, like top video game player. He got exposed on that, And once again, back to like whether it's MLK or Elon, we're not here to judge people about how they are in their personal life, however they, whatever things they had going on. But at the same time, conservatives for the longest champion Elon and about him being an authority and, but the fact that the guy has 7, 8 baby mamas, kids all out of wedlock, he kind of just has to make you wonder, like, how aligned is he with your conservative values for real? and then everything from, you know, his dealings with being super, I want to say super pro China, but basically, if he lost his government contracts tomorrow, he'd have to move his factories out of China, all these other places. I think we also forgot about Elon's stance on the H-1B visa, and bringing over these $10 engineers. And I think Conspiracy Brother, you did great work a few episodes back about how these Indians are so intellectually superior that we need them over here to fill the jobs that Americans can't do. That they, and the Boeing's hiring $10 engineers and whoever else. So it's become more and more, as I've seen as time goes on, the scales tip out of favor with Elon. Like I said, I can still appreciate him being a Johnny come lately, helping get Trump across the finish line. However money he spent doing little lottery raffles in Pennsylvania to whip up that swing state. I still appreciate what he did at the Doge, and I think that's the thing we got to realize. Like, I don't ever throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'll still I'll still eat the meat off the ribs and then chew out the bones I don't like. I can still simultaneously appreciate what Elon Musk did for getting Trump elected, for Doge exposing a lot of that corruption. But as far as his overall attitude, the fact that he thinks, yeah, like being a foreign-born citizen, I can run for office. I'm with you, Conspiracy Brother. I don't think anybody who is foreign-born or has any dual citizenship should hold office. There's just too many things at this point with Elon. The cons overweigh the pros, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm still grateful for Doge, but he is really out of pocket with this one, and it just kind of goes to show that he's tipping more to be the Trojan horse for America versus the savior. So I'm gonna just kind of land my plane there. All right, y'all. So moving on. Next subtopics. All right, whoever wants to jump in, Conspiracy Brother, Pastor Green. We got open border hypocrites and Mexico City protesters. We got the woke backlash from that Marvel's Ironheart. We got the Diddy verdict. I know we kind of touched on Karen Bass and that insanity. And then, of course, we also got UPenn, Title IX ruling. So whoever wants to dive in on these culture war topics, go right ahead.
Well, I want to talk about the open border hypocrites because, this past weekend, you saw, or this past week, they had riots all over Mexico where they were saying kill all gringos. And the made me laugh
Yep.
was their main concern was the gentrification of Mexico.
The irony, bro.
The
It's
irony of it.
still
I
the
mean,
irony,
they
bro,
worrying about gentrification.
of U.S. migration.
You
But
know,
keep going.
and here it is. Again, black people supporting Democrats, and these liberals, white liberals, are all about gentrification.
Look at this one. Look, pay taxes, learn Spanish, respect my culture.
Right.
What the awareness? What? How about we flip that? We just change that to English, and it could be somebody on the right holding that sign. Oh, that's racist. Look at this.
Exactly.
Look at oh man, keep going. Sorry.
But the thing that we say how they should be in this country, they're using the same argument, but they use the same argument when the benefits them. But yet you have Mexicans over here who are raising Mexican flags, but want to stay here.
Make it make sense.
I mean, come
Make
on.
it make sense.
Come on.
Make it make sense.
I mean, it's just absolute lunacy. And for them to say kill all gringos, we know gringos mean Americans. I mean, it's like, come on.
Matwa Gringo.
And we're not even going that far here in America. We're just saying, listen, y'all just need to go home. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, y'all just gotta go. That's all.
We ain't trying to kill you. We just said you got to go. But yet they're telling Americans leave Mexico. So come on. Come on. And I yield.
All right. Conspiracy, brother? We're waiting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like what I said, when other countries do stuff, it's just totally normal. But if America does this, it's like the craziest thing any Democrat or liberal or whatever has ever heard of. Like, we have to have some different level of understanding or something. And so then you know it's really a nefarious intent behind it all, that it has nothing to do with anything but, again, the Democratic Party. Old habits die hard. Cheap labor, free labor, exploited labor has always been their game. And you know, I'm not even going to just hang all of this on the Democrats, because the Republicans have been very pro open border for a long time. And you can find videos of Bernie Sanders back in the day saying that open borders hurts American workers.
Yep, I remember that clip.
So ultimately, what it boils down to is people having a greater allegiance to their party than to their country or to their fellow citizens. Whoever is paying their bills, they're writing their campaign donation checks, is who they listen to. And so this is a problem. But the reason why this happens, and this gentleman here can see no irony, and this is the real issue.
I got screenshot this one.
The reason why he can see no irony here is because there is a lot of racism in Mexico. And so a lot of the darker skinned Mexican people, they don't really care about what happens to them. You see, this is like more what you would consider like a white Mexican. So it's like, hey, don't make us have to live like the brown Mexicans. And it's like, no, you keep your Mexicans down there with y'all. Don't have them coming up here and destabilizing our labor market, our housing market, our automobile market, leeching off of our public services. But they don't see it that way. So long as their lives are untouched, they're fine. And so now American tech workers who can work remotely are moving to Mexico and upending their way of life, and it's only fitting. You guys have thought it was fine and okay, but and this is another issue that I forgot to mention earlier. But so much of that money that these immigrants make is sent home that it doesn't get into our economy, right? They're propping up all these different economies around the world, and that money doesn't go into the American economy. I've been thinking about it, like, what could Trump do to kind of offset that? Maybe he could do some kind of like export or exit tax on any money sent overseas. Maybe they could like,
he did that. He did raise the taxes on it. He did raise taxes.
He did?
Yes, he did.
I thought he did, but I couldn't remember for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did.
That money doesn't benefit America. You know, these people, they live, and it's always a joke. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Tariq Nasheed, but he makes like a lot of commentary and stuff. He's a documentary filmmaker and stuff.
Yeah, I used
like
to be heavy
he'll talk to
him.
people.
Yeah.
And they'll live, even like Do the Right Thing back in the 80s, where Spike Lee, they have like this scene. It's called the racial rant, and like this police officer is talking about Puerto Ricans, and he says 15 in a car, 30 in an apartment, and like you can live like that because where you're coming from to live in America is good enough. The conditions you lived under wherever you came from were so bad that even 30 of you in one apartment in a one bedroom is better than where you come from. And so again, as I'm reiterating, rather than fight to make your homeland livable to the standard that you would like, you come here to eat off someone else's plate.
Let go my ego.
Right.
Let go my ego.
And I mean, Americans, me and my wife were talking about this because we were watching this. She was showing me this thing on Instagram where this guy was reading reviews from people around the world going like to different tourist destinations. And I'm listening to this person read these reviews, and I said, these people aren't American, right? Like one of them said something like, I went to Spain. Nobody said there was going to be only Spanish food, or nobody said there was only going to be Spanish people, or nobody said everything was going to be in Spanish. I wish somebody would have told me it was a terrible time. And I'm like, well, Americans don't really go to Spain like that, number one. But number two, like, we're very multicultural people. As much as Americans get a bad reputation for being closed-minded, and, you know, Americans don't go anywhere, and, you know, we're very inclusive people. Like, way more inclusive than a lot of other people. And like, the people were from the UK, just like stuff they were saying. Let me know they were from the UK because they were calling it holiday instead of vacation, which we say vacation. We don't say holiday. But a lot of the people in the comments thought it was Americans just because it was English. But they don't know we don't say holiday. We say vacation. And so you saw a lot of people just making a lot of baseless generalizations about how Americans are so terrible to be around, and how much, you know, like this one guy, he was like, yeah, I went to Bali. I think he said he was from like Norway or Denmark or something. He was like, yeah, I went to Bali and I went in October. And it was great. And it was great because there were no Americans around. It was just a lot of Kiwis and Australians. And that was perfect. And I recommend anybody. And it's like, these are people who are supposed to be military and cultural allies with the United States. You know, like we aren't going to talk about it because I know we got a topic list. But like the whole thing with where Trump is saying now he's going to send weapons to Ukraine through NATO. NATO's paying for it all. Who funds NATO? We do. So that's a shell game. Even if NATO buys these weapons, they're still using our money because we disproportionately fund NATO. No country in NATO is, if they are now paying at 2% GDP to fund their own NATO security, they just started doing it since Russia invaded Ukraine. But we still disproportionately fund NATO. So even if NATO is buying these weapons, it's a shell game for the money. But we are spending American taxpayers' money, American soldiers' lives, or risking them at the very least for people that don't even like us. Let Europe stand on its own 2 feet. Let South America and Central America and the Caribbean stand on their own 2 feet. Because they don't value what we contribute. Now, I think in a lot of ways America acts as an empire. And I think in a lot of ways we need to dial that back. I do. But how hypocritical is it that your security is guaranteed by a country that you hate? So you get the opportunity to keep your hands clean because you've essentially pawned off your security to a mercenary state. That's the country I live in. We don't have health care. We don't have college. When I say we don't have it, I mean we don't have it at the same level as these European countries where people can go to the doctor when they need to, that people can go to college when they need to at a reasonable price, so that you can have security and you guys get to do all this other stuff. And then you get to insult us on the other side of it. If you don't like America, that is totally fine. If you want to use our stuff, pay top dollar for it, or don't use it and fight your own battles. Because Norway is like the size of Iowa or something. I guarantee you, Russia would have no problem if there's such a threat of getting in there and messing you up if they needed to. And we're thousands of miles away because there's an ocean in between us. We're perfectly content to deal with our own problems in this country, as I think we should. But this is the hypocrisy from all these different groups. They get to operate from their own national self-interest, and we have to think about the world. We have to be compassionate to the world. When you go to America, when you go to South Florida, and you ride it or look at any kind of signage, it's in Spanish, it's in English, it's in Haitian Creole. You come here, the signs are in English, they're in Spanish, they're in Arabic. When you go to New York, you might find stuff in Chinese and Spanish. You know what I'm saying? You go to Spain, the stuff is in Spanish. You go to France, the stuff is in French.
Yet
you go to Japan, the stuff is in Japanese.
That's right.
And I was going to mention, yet in America, I think it was just a few months ago, after Trump took office, he made like English the official language of America. For whatever reason, that was never the case legally. And then the fact that the left had it their way, Spanish should be the official language of the U.S. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
At least be co-equal to English, which doesn't make
Right.
sense.
Right.
All of our founding documents are in English. That alone lets you know what the national language is. And I've heard theories that the reason we didn't ever have an official language was because it was implied, like they never thought they needed to do it. It was implied. Everything's in English. What else is it going to be? But apparently not. You have to call a number and press 1 for English.
Yeah. Been like that since I was a kid, almost.
Which makes no sense. Why should I have to? English should be the default. If you want another language, you should have to go out of your way to request another language.
Highly.
I shouldn't have to go out of my way to get English in America. I'm off my soapbox.
All right. Clearly, but we love it, conspiracy brother. All right, good stuff. I'm gonna pivot really quick to the Diddy verdict. I know y'all ain't big on like the whole Diddy stuff. Obviously, I have a little nuanced take. So obviously, the verdict came down a few days ago, and I think for the main racketeering RICO charges, they dismissed that. I think he got caught up on sexual abuse or domestic. I don't have all the. Yeah, here it is right here. All right, so we got the official count. I clicked on the video. Okay. All right, count 1, racketeering, conspiracy, not guilty. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty. Guilty on transportation to engage in prostitution. Count 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty. Count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty. All right, so here's my nuanced take, all right? And everybody may not like it. So, I am not saying Diddy is a victim. Okay, Diddy, I think his dad was a Fed. He has a long Fed-like history. I think a lot of people say that the club shooting in '99 that pretty much led him down to starting to be the Epstein, to gather information, or just really be this sort of cultural influencer, for the music industry, if you will. But I think there's a political aspect to this, to where it's very funny how, once again, the guy's debaucherous. They got the video of him beating up Cassie. I'm not defending his moral character, what he's into, his lifestyle. That's just who he is in the industry. But I find it very interesting where a few years ago, when the guy, he started talking about getting people's masters back and trying to kind of talk about the generational black wealth empowerment, and really just talking about like ownership and masters. That's where you started to see the Jaguar videos recirculate. You started to see a lot of these things coming out. End of the day, Diddy was a long used asset for the industry, for promoting debauchery, for keeping black folks in line. He was the one during COVID. Oh, spear mongering black folks. That's why we need to vote Democrat, y'all, because we get to let Trump back in again. We let Trump reelected. So I think at the end of the day, I think it was political, the racketeering, the RICO charges. That was to an extent what killed the case. When you have the prosecutors mentioning things such as like just over and over talking about 1,000 bottles of baby oil and all these other little frivolous things. We all know the hip hop culture of getting flown out, and how women in the hip hop world, whether they're these only fan models that go over to Europe, that look for the rich guys in the rich guys at the clubs with the yacht, it happens everywhere. So I think at the end of the day with Diddy, what a grown man chooses to do, and once again, there was no evidence that any of these people were underage. There wasn't any children involved. These were very sick, debaucherous, consenting adults. All right. And once again, it's the fact that we live in a society where, once again, women, they want to find their prince, and they want to get flued out. And Diddy was just providing that, whether it was the guys and the girls. He was fluing out the guys and the girls. But at the end of the day, I think the prosecution really tried to make this thing out more than it should have been. Well, I'm not calling Diddy any sort of victim. I'm not giving him any sort of character pass. But I think the prosecution from the start, they were trying to make an example out of him, and it really backfired. And once again, I'm not condoning his behavior and all that stuff that happened, but you can't overlook the fact that it was highly political. Once again, the guy's a piece of crap, beating women, sexual debauchery, whatever. But you can't up and say he was in charge of this huge trafficking operation. Where are the videotapes of him recording everybody? Or making him to be this Epstein, which I think I think he was to an extent. But I just think the case, the trial was very flawed, with them trying to make this into sort of racketeering and all that, when they should have just kept it simple. Where the guy is just a debaucherous person, but at the end of the day, you can't try and put him away for life as if he's a gangster. But that's just my nuanced thoughts. I got a little more context, but if anybody want to just give their quick thoughts on the Diddy verdict, we can kind of put it to bed.
Well,
Yeah.
Again, this whole situation with Diddy, again, this all stems from is the creation of the Democratic Party. How can I say that? If you remember when Kathy Hochul and Letitia James, they were going after Trump. Kathy Hochul took off the statute of limitations temporarily, so that you could go after people for things that were done 30 years ago.
That's how they got Eric Adams too. Eric and Diddy got caught.
Right. Yep. So that was the genesis of all of this. So in the Democrats' attempt to go after Trump, they created this whole scenario where people can go back in time and bring up cases. And notice they said temporarily. So they knew they were doing something illegal, and they didn't have no legal justification for doing it, which is why they just said it's temporarily. But then this whole situation with Diddy came out. Now again, Diddy is a debaucherous individual.
Yep.
But the truth is, it's not illegal to be filthy. He's filthy, but that's not a crime. He's a filthy, perverted individual. But the thing, and I was sharing this with other people for the last month. It's not a crime to be nasty, but at the same time, I don't even think he should face the conviction for prostitution, because you look at this woman Cassie. Now you can't claim to be both a victim and a beneficiary.
Willing participant in the freak-offs.
I mean, you were being flown on the jets. You were given all the cash, all the luxury. You were at every red carpet event. And for what I understand, this was going on for 11 years. So for 11 years, you were a willing participant. So much so that they showed that she was doing a lot of this without even Diddy's consent. Because, Diddy, Cassie, they're swingers. So, what they say as part of the law of swingers is that you can't have sex with someone else unless the man gives permission or the woman gives permission. But she was doing a lot of this on her own, as well as with Diddy's consent. So she was a willing participant. And when you think of the nasty things she was willing to do, I mean, letting people urinate in her mouth. I mean, when she filed that lawsuit initially, she should have took her money and just disappeared, because she participated in this. Yeah, they gave her immunity. Okay. And the only reason why you give a person immunity because you know they're guilty in the first place. So this whole lawsuit really didn't make no sense, because the fact that she was given immunity and the other one, I believe 56 ex-girlfriend, someone like that, these people were getting paid.
Yeah.
So they all
All
were
of them.
prostitutes, all were nasty, all were filthy. So again, I say you can't claim to be a victim and a beneficiary at the same time. And I really believe this is another case of the Me Too movement just going too far.
But
They try
really,
to make her
yeah.
they try to make her sound like a heroine. Oh, she stood up for abused women. No, she
No,
didn't. No, she
no.
didn't.
Cassie, man, even for us, like me and conspiracy brother, we grew up in the millennials, 90s, 2000s. Cassie, Cassie go back with Diddy like 20 years because I think she first signed the Bad Boy early mid 2000s because she had that hit that R&B hit Me and You, or it was like 05, 06. And the video didn't come out till this is like 2016. So really, she had some minor hits, R&B hits, mid 2000s. She kind of fell off. I think she got dropped or whatever. Diddy moved on to the next artist. So 2016, that's like years after she fell off, and it's just that this went out so long. I hate to once again interject again, but you are absolutely right, Pastor Green, on how once again it's kind of like don't make me defend Trump, with all the lawfare they did on him last couple of years. Like don't make me defend Diddy, but we just got to call a spade a spade. Where once again, there's women and even guys out there, male escorts, where they live off of getting flued out and meeting these rich men at these places around the world, and it's just implied like, hey, we can have some fun together, and whether it's paying for in-kind gifts or just a night out, it is implied prostitution, but it happens. They're out there doing that. So I even got to give even these other two counts he's guilty of. I'm like, this is what these women do, and like guys do that are into it.
Right.
So even that, I gotta just call BS. Once again, don't make me defend Trump. I'm kind of like, don't make me defend Diddy, but we just gotta call it out. But conspiracy brother, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
really
I agree a
nasty.
lot
I don't
with.
want to defend it, but yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I
Go right
agree a
ahead.
lot with what. Oh no, no problem. I agree a lot with
Yeah.
what Pastor Green was saying. Um, and the way I've taken it, if they had, I mean, there's a lot of stuff he's done as throughout his career that was corrupt, maybe even illegal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they should have hit him for that. But
Yeah.
I think the Biden DOJ really wanted a big fish type of victory. They wanted to try to take a lot of his assets, which is why they tried to do this whole RICO thing. And so ultimately, it did not prove successful for them. And so, I don't know. You look at it, you wonder how can a guy like him be charged with RICO? But was Harvey Weinstein charged with RICO?
Not that I'm
Like,
aware of.
and I would say, it's far more plausible that a person of his stature would have had the opportunity to run an enterprise. And even, let's not split hairs, but like the whole idea of the casting couch and that kind of thing is well known, right? That's a
Right.
well-known, a publicly talked about concept within Hollywood. There's no backlash to the reality of that. So I think ultimately it was the Biden Justice Department was trying to make an example out of him, and it backfired. Ultimately, he didn't win re-election, and Um, I don't know that the Trump DOJ ever was really invested in this from the outset. So, it didn't amount to anything. But yeah, it's like I said, I'm not a fan of his personally. I think he was clearly involved in a lot of high level Democratic political stuff, as we know, with all the vote or die stuff and whatever. And he seemed to really have well placed friendships within the upper echelon of the Democratic Party. And they appeared to have run out of use for him. And so they were fine to throw him away. Essentially, is what happened. And this is what that looks like. As far as, Cassie, I think one of the male escorts is suing her now for giving him like a sexually transmitted disease.
Ooh.
So she's definitely
yeah, that's true.
She definitely
36 hour freak offs involving piss may tend to bring a couple STDs to the party.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, she wants to be a victim, but as you said, conservative brother, how many years did she stay? And you can't continue to give the excuse that, oh well, she was afraid, whatever. I work for a living, and I have for almost 20 years, and it sucks. And I also have morals, so there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't do to make money, and that sucks too sometimes. But there are a lot of people who don't have morals and who will do a lot of stuff not to have to work. And she was one of those people.
Flew out.
And, she was fine to put up with some stuff that I wouldn't put up with. I wouldn't recommend people put up with in order to live a lifestyle that a lot of people would be fine to live if they never had to work again. And I think, the Me Too movement has essentially fallen victim to the reality of that. People are understanding that a lot of these victims, and I'm doing air quotes, are really just on the other end of a transaction, and women are just as capable of lying. They are just as capable of creating narratives. They're just as capable of committing wrong or harm or hurting as any man. And so, she's not an angel or a saint, and she doesn't deserve to be treated as one. So
yeah, well done, gents. All right, so enough about Diddy, but definitely needed to talk about that. We did hit on Karen Bass already. We really went in on the legal migrant topic. I think we should hit on real quick UPenn. Obviously, they just had a ruling. I don't know if it was exact ruling. The ruling wasn't a Supreme Court ruling, but UPenn came out and officially acknowledged that Leah Thomas does have a certain bat and balls between his legs, and it really isn't a woman. Still has XY chromosomes, and and Riley Gaines and other women, kind of have a problem with that. You walking around butt naked in the locker room. Gosh, she looks eerily like Hillary Clinton. That scared the crap out of me. Like it's like her and Hillary Clinton ran into each other, really hard. But now we have UPenn officially coming out and apologizing. So big win for women in Title IX, which we have been touting about for years. That Democrats and of course a lot of black Dems just kind of ignore or just pretend like, oh well, I don't want to say no, I'll get in trouble at work. But it's a really great win. So I'm happy for Riley Gaines. A lot of the women that we've covered over the years, even that fencer recently who kneeled and refused to fight that male fence person. So once again, this isn't about we don't hate trans people, nothing like that. We don't wish any harm, but you just gotta recognize reality. So it's done, and basically, I think Leah Thomas has to give up the medals, and UPenn officially came out, apologized, and had to officially recognize women as men not being allowed in women's sports. So really big win for the culture war. But I'd like to go ahead, Pastor Greens. You want to go ahead and give your thoughts on this
Well, on the
common
offset,
sense ruling?
yeah, on the offset, I want to say, one thing that we have to stop doing, we need to stop calling these girly men women.
Oh yeah, him, Leah Thomas,
Him, because
him. Oh
it's
yeah,
not a female.
him.
And, biblically speaking, we have to hate what God hates. Now, God loves the sinner, but he hates the sin. So, this whole thing with this transgender nonsense, that's to be hated. It's to be hated because it is, again, it is an extreme, it's more than mental illness. I really believe, as a Christian, it's a form of demon possession because anytime you, as a man, think you are a woman, and I heard some so-called experts saying, men can have anal births. Now it's something that's impossible, but yet people claim it is possible. See, that's a form of demon possession because and the Bible describes that God is not the author of confusion, but he gives us power and love and a sound mind. Now let that sink in. God gives us a sound mind. It is the devil that is the author of confusion and madness. So we have to call it what it is. This whole transgender, no, we're not gonna say, oh well, we love everybody, we just accept everybody. No, we don't, and we shouldn't, because there's no such thing as being transgender in the first place. You're either a man or a woman, and no operation can change that. It don't matter what you feel like. I mean, I could feel like I'm a New York Knicks player, but you think I could just I can just go to a sporting goods store, buy a Knicks uniform, and get a paycheck from the Knicks? No matter what you feel like, reality is reality. And it's time that we, as sane individuals, moral individuals, start calling this stuff for what it is. Transgender is lunacy. It's crazy. And it should not even be considered. There should be no affirmation of it. It's wrong, it's evil, it's wicked, and it needs to be stopped. And now you.
Amen. Conspiracy brother, your thoughts on this landmark common sense breaking development at UPenn? Finally seeing the light. We're reading the
Well,
room.
they're only doing all this because Trump revoked their funding because they're violating Title IX. But I think it's interesting that you have this situation where this is even a conversation that needs to be had. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, 20 years ago, I was just talking to my wife about this. 20 years ago, you never would have thought this was going to be a conversation that we would be having, where we had to actually say, hey, men are men and women are women. You know what I'm saying? Like, this wasn't for most people, I was suspicious of it, but I'll say for most people, this was something we never thought would need to be said.
All right.
But it's like now that it's here, what in 20 years, what's going to be the thing? 20 years from now, what's going to be the thing that society is doing, that people are pushing, that we are going to have to navigate through, that we didn't expect? Where do we go from here? How does this all bottom out? Will it bottom out, or will people eventually stand up and say, hey, common sense rules the day here. We're not going to play this game anymore. You're not going to have us compromise our intelligence and our common sense and reality for the sake of someone's feelings. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to operate from a position of truth and facts, and that's it. Is that going to ever happen again? Like what what is going to happen next? It seems so ridiculous that we would even have to say, hey, men are stronger than women, men are faster than women, because why do we have divisions? What was the reason we ever created divisions to begin with, if it wasn't because men are stronger than women and men are faster than women? And, even like when you look at sports, like high school males who run track are faster than like Olympic track athletes, female. Routinely, high school boys run faster than female Olympic athletes. And that's the reality. You know what I'm saying? You see videos of teenage boys competing against world-class female soccer players and destroying them. Boys, little boys. And we have to pretend like we didn't know that men are stronger than women. This is where we are, I just, it's an unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in. It's an unfortunate reality that we have to cheer that people are acknowledging the truth. We have to be satisfied or happy, or however you want to look at it, that people are saying, hey, water is wet, the sky is blue, grass is green. That's a cause for celebration in 2025. That's the timeline. You watched the Jetsons when you were a kid, or, Back to the Future, or any of those shows like that dealt with time travel. And, you thought one day, hey, we're going to have flying cars, and jokes on you. All you have is men who want to be ladies, and you lose your job and your livelihood, and you can't be in polite society if you say, no, you're not. That's all you got. No flying cars, no teleportation, no space travel, nothing. You got men who will make your life a living hell if you don't say that they're also ladies.
So, all
Good on Penn. You know, for being willing to live in reality at the threat of a loss of funding. You know.
Yeah. And great thoughts, conspiracy brother. We talked about this topic so much on in. You know, so I don't know if there's anything else left to say. Like, you know, make common sense great again. I love your comment earlier. Also, like, you know, America only is the new America first. I think that should be a shirt. America only is the new America first, and making you know, women's sports women led again, or whatever it is, maybe. You know, so all right,
Mhm.
more developments as they come in on that. Next thing I want to get into, we call this uncomfy truth. So, and once again, I bring up these stories not to just try and highlight our home, me and Conspiracy Brothers' hometown of Detroit. Like, we're the only city got this going on. I'd say this is just a small sample size of what I'm pretty sure is going on in every Democrat controlled American city. All right. So I'm not trying to like just put Detroit on blast, but I think this is a cultural issue that, you know, that's been going on, you know, and then of course we got this other unfortunate thing. But I think we would be a disservice if we didn't call ourselves uncomfy truths and not address a lot of the multi-layer issues with what's going on in our culture. And this just being one example in the city of Detroit. So I'm gonna just play this real quick. Let me know if you guys can hear the audio. And then we'll just kind of break it down from there. So bear with me a second here. Oh, and that's running a little slow. Hold on a moment. But just for context, you're from Detroit, you know, 4th of July is really big. A lot of big gathering downtown. At least when I was coming up as a teen, we gathered down at Hart Plaza, watched the fireworks, and you know, somebody scuffer hits, you know, scuffer, you know, step on somebody's Jordans. There's a little altercation. There's a couple shots that ring out. You know, it's kind of tempered down since then, but then every year you still get some sort of scuffle that happens. Can you guys hear that audio? Can you guys hear that?
I heard it.
Okay. All right.
I heard a little bit.
All right.
The streets lighting off fireworks, doing donuts, harassing bus drivers. It all ends with a car set on fire. Good evening, everybody. I'm Birthright.
This all happened early Saturday morning, and it's the second time in 2 weeks a rowdy crowd paralyzed a Detroit neighborhood. Fox News' Jessica Dupnack joining us live with more. Jess, that had to be a frightening scene for some out there. Yeah, we've been covering these street takeovers for several years. That's definitely not new here in the city of Detroit. It kind of ebbs and flows, but this one, it was pretty bad. We're talking about 200 people really paralyzed a Detroit neighborhood for about an hour and a half. This time they had fireworks. They were shooting them off at cars. Even when Detroit Fire came, they were shooting them at those firefighters. And they also jumped on DDOT buses. This was absolute chaos, and a lot of it was caught on video. Take a look.
Was extremely chaotic. It was almost riot level. They were shooting fireworks at cars, at passersby. They were threatening to shoot people.
A street takeover on Detroit's west side for an hour and a half. Detroit police say about 200 people packed the intersection. I mean, truly, look at it, what was going on.
Definitely.
From where it happened around 3 a.m. Sunday.
A group of people were jumping on top of the white Challenger that was set on fire. And then a group of people started to jump on the bus, and then they started shooting fireworks at the bus, throwing M80s at the bus.
3 people were arrested. The Detroit police eventually assembled and responded.
We had to pull police cars from multiple precincts. You can't send one scout car into a crowd of 200 people and not put the officers at risk.
DPD's mobile field force put in place last summer after another illegal gathering on the city's east side, where 21 people were shot, but their shift ends at 3 a.m.
It's becoming clear to the chief and me that these folks have figured out the mobile field force is going home at 3 o'clock and have adjusted their strategies.
Now that team will stay out until 5 a.m. Sources say these street takeovers draw crowds from the city and suburbs, and they organize on social media for social media.
They're not going to get no likes in the parking lot, but if they shut down 7 Mile, they will.
This time, Stefan cleaned up liquor bottles off the block. He says next time, he doesn't want it to be bodies.
Hopefully in the future, this is curtailed because it can potentially escalate into something far greater.
That ring of fire lit by gasoline in the intersection, just unbelievable. A lot of folks may be wondering why this intersection of 7 Mile and Myers. It's unclear. There's 3 or 4 green light locations out there, cameras everywhere. We didn't get a clear answer as to why that intersection in particular. Now, another change that was announced today by the mayor, he says any gathering that comes in, any call that comes in about a gathering of young people, it's now going to be a priority 911 call. That means escalated to the top of the pile for DPD officers, and they'll respond quicker. Again, also that mobile unit that's trained to break up these kinds of gathering, they're extending their hours at least through the summer from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., hoping to end some of this pretty crazy activity. Reporting live on Detroit's West Side, Jessica Dupnack, Fox 2 News.
You know, preface by saying these officers have incredibly difficult jobs that not all of us understand what goes into it. But you mentioned they were shooting out those firecrackers while first responders were at the scene. So I get that this was a tough scene to control, but 200 people in an hour and a half of this just going on, is there a reason it went on for so long?
Well, Stefan, who you heard from in the story there, he calling 911. 911 dispatchers reported that they understood that they were getting calls, but the problem is at 3 a.m., that mobile unit that's trained for this, they're gone for the night. Remember, it was 4th of July, so there's calls all over the city. So it was kind of a strategic manpower issue. You can't send one scout car into 200 people.
Sure.
Saw how rowdy it is. So it does make sense. It's hopefully something they can learn from, and this doesn't happen again.
Well, it sounds like they did, talking about the timing and what the mayor and the chief want to do to change it. Hey, they should all know that the police are watching and the city's watching too. Jessica Dupnack for us live tonight.
All right, so I bring this up for a couple reasons. Now, you probably noticed a couple similarities. You know, donuts in the street, people cheering. You know, I was waiting to see a Mexican flag or a Palestine flag pop up. I see a consistent thing that we see in other cities right now, the disrespect of law and order. I got relatives that stay here. I got, I got strong ties. But it just concerns me on how after all that they just said, well, the mobile team left at 3, so next year we're gonna have them out till 5. And you just say that live, like, okay, now they're playing in a little group chats. All right, we'll just start after 5. So just like with the organized flash mobs, San Francisco, California, Antifa, which I've seen myself, they organize, they run around, and basically, what's to stop us from one day having that, you can shoplift under $1,000 and you won't get prosecuted. I think just from COVID and letting a lot of these riots in other cities run loose, people get more and more emboldened. And we're seeing the same hesitancy that other cities have shown when cops just aren't either responding or they're just sitting by and letting this happen. And I don't want to see somebody, nobody got hurt apparently. Nobody got shot and killed, which I'm grateful for. But a lot of what I didn't notice before when I lived in Michigan a few years ago before I moved back, a lot of what I escaped from California, I'm starting to see signs of that permeating back home here in Detroit. So I bring that up to say, like, when they're saying, like, well, we're just gonna keep them out longer than 5. I think we have a much deeper cultural issue with disrespect of law and order, and then also the not enforcing of that law. And guess what? A democratically majority-run city. So I'm not saying this to bash my own hometown, but I'm seeing a lot of similarities to California that's creeping more and more here. But I'd like to get, once again, Conspiracy Brother, your thoughts, Pastor Green, if you dealt with this in New York and Pennsylvania as well. Is it just me? The crime of me noticing it, is it just me?
No, it's
Or
not
what's the
just you. It's not just you. But I'm gonna say something controversial here. See, this because of situations like that, this is why I say I'm not part of Black culture anymore. Now, I think I'm the oldest individual in this conversation, being that I was born in the year 1964. Okay. And when I was coming as I was born and raised in Harlem, New York. I was grow up in the St. Nicholas projects. But during that time, I remember as a kid, I didn't own a watch, but I knew what time to be in the house. Because when that street light came on, me and my friends, our butts went upstairs. And God forbid if my mother or father had to come looking for me. That meant I was getting the beating. But the thing about it, we used to have, I was a teenager in the 80s. We used to have block parties, things of that nature. Not a shot was fired. Nothing like that. But now you see how, and I saw that report, and mostly that was all Black youth out there wilding, acting a fool. Same thing you be seeing happen in Chicago. And what has happened is we have children who are not being raised properly. You know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he is older, he will not depart from it. But you have no moral foundations in a lot of Black homes these days. And what do I mean by that? I could not get in trouble. I feared my parents more than peer pressure. Because that's how I was raised. That's how culturally in the 60s, 70s, this is how we were raised. We were raised to respect parents. We were raised to respect adults. We were raised to respect the law, which is one of the reasons why as I grew older and became a man, I had a career in law enforcement. But the values that used to be foundational in Black culture, when I say foundational values, we did not used to act like this. It would have been unheard of. You know, there's one word that no Black person could spell in the 70s or the 80s. And you know what that word was? Tantrum. Black kids didn't act up. We didn't. We couldn't bring shame to our parents' name. But now it's just done. So and the thing about it, there's a lack of accountability in the Black community. Because if we can allow our youth to act like this, and then you'll hear a knucklehead like Brandon Johnson in Chicago, oh well, they didn't have nothing to do. Don't call their behavior criminal. No, they just didn't have nothing to do. Are you serious? So, you know, as Black people today, we need to get back to having morals and accountability in our culture. But until we do, I will not relate to this culture. I refuse to. Not you.
All right, now conspiracy brother. Before I bring you in, I want to go a cut deeper. I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick because we both from Detroit. All right, and I know we both remember Devil's Night. It was really popular in the 80s and 90s. The night before, I don't know if it was. I know in Detroit at least, and the surrounding areas, the night before Halloween, where you get the kids coming out cutting up. I think both in white and black neighborhoods. And they may light a couch on fire, throwing toilet paper all over the trees, cutting up that night, the night before Halloween. So some people say, well, it's been happening for years, Devil's Night. Now Devil's Night is July 4th weekend. So conspiracy brother, I'm just curious, can we kind of write it off like, well, it's just kind of like Devil's Night, or is this different? Has it gotten worse and escalated, or is this just like, hey, this is the new Devil's Night in Detroit? Curious what you think.
Well, see, this is what I think. I was watching this podcast. This is like a short. And so I think it was from the Daily Mail in the UK. He was reading this article, and it was saying that young women need to get young men in shape, like in the UK, because they're not ambitious. They don't have a purpose. They just want to play video games. They don't really want to go out and get jobs. They don't have any desire to become productive members of society. And the podcaster was talking basically about how the situation came to be and what's really the call, like what's at fault, and how this prescription for the way to correct this is not. And so less than it's a cultural expression, I think this is a combination of things, right? And I don't think it's excusable, right? So I want to start off by saying that first, right? It's not a situation where I say, oh well, you can't. No one should be punished. This is a problem that's deeper than this, and so we just have to let it go. Which is what it sounds like you were saying. Brandon Johnson said. I'm not saying you said he said this, but the way what you said he said hit my ears. That's what it sounds like to me. An excuse. You're justifying this. You're the mayor of a major American city, and you don't have any answers or any solutions to deal with these issues in your city, right? You're not a problem solver. You're reactionary, right? And this is one of the things that modern politicians suffer from. They are not they're not proactive. They're entirely reactive. So if there's an issue, they don't respond to it until there's a loud enough chorus from the constituency or the American public for them to be sure that the decision they make will not cost them their political careers. But getting back to this, so you have a situation where a manufacturing town like Detroit has essentially no manufacturing jobs. And there's already depressed opportunity. And the internet and the quest for fame or infamy is great. Peer pressure now in the digital age is intense. And so you have stupid kids and stupid young adults and stupid adults making stupid decisions egged on by likes. Like the guy said, you don't get as many likes in a parking lot. So you go and stand on 7 Mile and Myers and block traffic. And you're chasing likes. And everybody's doing it, right? To some degree. All the young kids are doing it. Varying degrees of stupidity, right? Varying degrees of obstruction of daily life for whoever's around, right? But this is what's happening.
And so in a depressed community, in a depressed city, this is another issue compounded upon the thousands of other issues that Detroit is dealing with. And then for the mayor to say, they know we stop at 3, so we're going to stop at 5, which is to say, now they know we stop at 5.
Right, that killed me. That killed me, bro.
We hope they're
That
too
killed me when you
tired
said
by
that.
5. We hope they're too tired by 5 to still be out at 6.
Oh,
Right? Because like so for example, up the street from my house, on the weekend only, individual parks a semi truck on a residential street. And so it's I'm crossing what do you call it? There's a road with a median, right? Outer drive. So I'm driving perpendicular to outer drive. Outer drive is a 3 lanes on each side with a median separating it. Roadway or highway, I don't know how you want to call it. And the semi truck is here to the left. So the traffic is coming the direction, and you can't see it's got a trailer on it, maybe 20 feet or more, and you can't see around it. And so it creates a danger. So I've complained to the city about it. But guess what? Nobody's doing the job of ticketing on the weekends. The parking enforcement office is closed on the weekends. So I can't call anybody to report this vehicle. And during the week, he doesn't park there. So yesterday on my way home, I saw some police officers and I asked them about it. I talked to them about it. And they told me to contact the precinct. And I said, will they be open today? It was Saturday. And he was not sure. I said, because they won't be there Monday when the precinct is open, because he's only there Saturday, Sunday, and like maybe Friday evening when he knows nobody's going to be there. And so I'm telling my wife, you cannot have a city, and my father, you cannot have a city that does not operate on the weekend.
facts.
And so in this same way, you can't have a city where enforcement of rules and laws only operate during waking hours. This is the same with gun control. If you have rules like these, then the only people who are affected are law-abiding citizens. Because I'm not up at 3 a.m., so it doesn't matter. I'm in the bed anyway at 3 a.m. Right? I don't park on the side of the road. So it's not an issue. But on the weekend, when I'm driving home, I told the officers, I said, multiple times I've almost been hit. Multiple times I've almost hit someone because this truck is here. And when I drove home today, the truck was still here. So the officers said they were going to go drive by. I don't know if they did anything or said anything, but the vehicle was still hidden, it was still there today. And so these are the issues. You have a country in this city. We talked about it earlier. You're bringing in people who you are helping with housing, with employment, with finding vehicles, and your American young men and maybe even young women are out there participating, are rudderless. They have no hope. They have no future. They have no interest. They have no prospects to be productive. Nothing. Their families have been shattered by generations of over-policing and drug policy by the party that governs the city right now. Simultaneously, the individual who wrote those policies was president, and his son was a crackhead and did not go to jail. His family was not, undermined in any way. his family life was not overturned in any way. And so now these are the consequences. You have young men who would work if they could see a future in it, who would do something positive. And the reason I know this, Pastor Green just said it, they used to do it. When the young men in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s had the opportunity to do something productive, they did it. Were there still people drag racing? Yeah. Were there still people doing donuts in the middle of the street? I'm sure. But there were not as many as we see today. One, because the incentive wasn't there. You didn't have the internet and people videotaping it. But two, because people had something to lose. You had a job, a stable life, a family, a career, a home. What do you have now? You live with your parents or your mother. You have a car, maybe. And what else? No future, no hope, no prospect. You live for today. And if tomorrow comes, you'll deal with it when it gets here. And every young American man, and to a lesser degree, young woman, is living life this way. We'll deal with tomorrow when it gets here. We deal with we engage in these destructive behaviors. Look at OnlyFans. We'll engage in these destructive, self-inflicted behaviors and deal with the consequences tomorrow. And they live life like we all know when you're young, like tomorrow will never come. But one day it will be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then what do you say? Because sorry won't cut it. When you do donuts in the middle of the street and kill somebody, sorry is not going to be good enough. When you're on the internet bearing it all for $5 a month, and one day you want to be a respectable young woman, sorry is not going to be good enough. And then what do you do? But we got to make sure that all the illegal immigrants who came to this country are made whole, because the government is trying to enforce immigration policy to get them out of here if they're not supposed to be here. That's the priority. We got to make sure that all the people. Oh, Pastor Green dropped off. Let me see. Oh, there he is. We got to make sure. I'll get it back up. We got to make sure that all the people who come to this country who don't have the means to live here, to survive here, get all the help and aid that we do not afford the American people. One of the issues we could have talked about in this here is immigrant rights advocates are asking that there is a rent moratorium for illegal immigrants in LA.
Here we go.
Where's the rent moratorium for American citizens who haven't gotten a raise in real wages since the 70s? When I say a raise in real wages, I'm talking about adjusted for inflation. You haven't gotten a raise in real wages since the 70s. Where's the moratorium on rents and mortgages and insurance and car payments for American citizens? But you have a group of people that we put in office who are advocating for people who cannot even vote. And this is it. Because it's easier to shame those people who can't speak up for themselves than it is to look at every politician and tell them their days are numbered. And they can take it however they want to take it. Take that threat however they want to take it. Your days are numbered.
right.
But we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful as a group in the world, as Americans, as the people on the ground who have to do everything, who work, who pay taxes, that we cannot become so civilized that we allow ourselves to become captured. In the history of this country, people were tarred and feathered. In the history of this country, people were taken out of their homes, politicians, and dealt with mob justice. That is the American history. Thomas Jefferson said, the tree of liberty, what? The tree of liberty must be watered every so often with the blood of tyrants and patriots.
I like the blood of tyrants. Well, yeah, and patriots if they got it.
That's the sacrifice, right?
Yeah, sacrifice.
That's the sacrifice. But and I understand that as you listen to it, you understood it better. But that's the problem. We all want to live in America with no sacrifice. And the illegals want to come up here and live in America with no contribution. They want to tell you, well, I worked here for 30 years, 6 days a week, and I don't get a 401k, and I didn't have vacation. And that's not a sacrifice. That undermines American workers. That's not a sacrifice. Who does that benefit? That's not a sacrifice. That's not the kind of sacrifice I'm talking about. You don't have to debase yourself in America to make a sacrifice. You don't have to dehumanize yourself in America to make a sacrifice. That's what the civil rights movement was about. We don't have to do that anymore. But this is what we need to do. This is what we need to understand. These people, these politicians, they laugh in our faces. They play with our money. And we just take it. And then when people who are less politically, socially aware, whatever you want to call it, less constrained than we are, act as they should because of all those limitations, we join in and, yeah, you stupid, you stupid. Yes, they are stupid. I'm not saying they're not stupid, but they're stupid for a reason, and they want you to be stupid too. But for the grace of God, there go I. And I want to make sure more of us aren't going over there. I want to hold you accountable. Why is the mayor of Detroit on the thing saying we're going to keep him here till 5?
Yeah, that ought to do it. That'll do it.
What kind of operation are you running? Is this a city or is this a madhouse?
I don't know. All right. Conspiracy brother is bringing it down again. All right. So I think we hit on a lot of the systemic cultural issues that we think Pastor Green, you eloquently put it well. Conspiracy brother, you put it well. Since it's already on here, I already mentioned it. I'm just going to play these 2 clips. If y'all want to react to it afterwards, I think what you guys said explains the issue of what happened here, unfortunately, and how we have this youth that's getting a weird sense of just no respect for authority and entitlement and just attention seeking. It's attention seeking, lack of respect, and I sound like an old man playing it on the hill. Like I've always been called an old soul, but we see this generational lack of respect to authority, entitlement, and then the attention seeking aspect. So, like I said, this is a pretty heavy story, but this is Uncomfy Truths. Let's go ahead and just a couple clips. I'm not going to play all of them. Y'all can give your reaction if you want, or we can move on to the final topic. So let me load these up real quick. Bear with me. But, you know, it's Uncomfy Truths, y'all. So we gotta at least touch on it. So this first clip's like 2-3 minutes. If it ever loads. All right.
And I'm Tara Nasher. We begin with a heartbreaking loss for one Metro Detroit family dealing really with an unthinkable tragedy.
Yeah, Taryn, what began as a normal day at work quickly turned violent. A mother of 6 stabbed to death at an East Point McDonald's while doing her job.
Fox News' Camila Mary joining us live with the very latest. And Camille, we understand you have spoken now with the woman's family. I mean, it's hard to imagine what they're going through.
Yeah, I mean, we were here all day, and the family members started showing up this afternoon, one after another, all coming back to the scene of the crime. She has 6 children, as you said, ages 5 to 20, and some of the littlest ones were here. And let me tell you, it was absolutely heartbreaking.
My mama was a good person. She was a good mom. Anybody story.
Jennifer Harris, a single mother of 6, a manager at McDonald's, fatally stabbed Thursday morning by one of her employees, according to police.
My mama, she woke up every day, went to work for us. My mama died trying to take care of us.
It happened right before 8 o'clock at the McDonald's on 9 Mile in East Point.
From our understanding, it happened near the drive-through window inside of the building, so in the employee area.
Investigators say it started as a verbal dispute between Harris and her employee. Harris asked the woman to leave, but
She came back with her hands. That's how I knew it was her. And she started stabbing her. I tried to stop her. It was no stopping her. She stabbed her everywhere.
police say a customer, a CPL holder in line at the drive-thru, witnessed the stabbing and shot his gun in the air, attempting to stop the crime. The suspect ran out of the fast food restaurant, the CPL holder getting out of his car and holding her at gunpoint until police arrived.
He absolutely did the right thing. He showed social heroism.
Harris's family members beside themselves with grief.
We met the lady and everything. I don't understand why she had to kill her. My mama was even good to her. She was good to everybody.
It's just so incredibly sad. The children's father is incarcerated. They told us that when we met with them earlier today. So it was just their mom and them. The suspect is 26 years old. And of course, we expect her to be arraigned possibly tomorrow or the next day, hoping to learn more about what led up to this. Meanwhile, Jennifer worked here. She went by the name of Gemma, and she worked here for 15 years. So, I mean, just a horrible, horrible story all around. There is absolutely nothing that makes sense about this. Reporting live in East Point, Camila Mary, Fox 2.
Yeah, Camila, I know that Gemma, the person had an argument today. The suspect comes back, stabbing her, but do we know if this was an ongoing fight beyond today between the two of them? Are family members saying anything about that?
They're not. I mean, you know, we're going to hear more about that situation at the 6 o'clock show. But from every intents and purposes that we've been able to learn, the suspect actually went out of her way to be nice to the children. All of them here at the McDonald's, they would hang out sometimes here. So you're going to hear more about that relationship at 6 o'clock. But they just can't understand this because they say it's so out of the blue. And what led up to this, why she did this, that, of course, remains to be seen. But, of course, we'll have a lot more tonight at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, certainly such a terrible loss. So we feel for her. We just feel so badly for her family as well. We'll look forward to your report tonight at 6. Camila Mary for us live. Thank you.
All right, so the context here, the suspect ended up being a 26-year-old employee of McDonald's. And me going over this, I don't get any pleasure in this, but I think we all have to kind of, this could be a relative of ours, a cousin. I got family members who live all over Michigan, Detroit. So I say this to say, because this could be anybody we know. So she was a 26-year-old employee that got mad because she got sent home a couple of times. And I don't know her full mental health. I don't know her background. I'm not here to demonize this young black woman, 26-year-old woman. But it doesn't look good. But at the same time, we don't know her family situation. We don't know what the mental illness factors were. But I think one of these clips does shed a little more light. So let me play this one.
Breaking news this morning, violence breaks out at a local McDonald's where police say an argument between co-workers led to one of them being stabbed to death.
Fox News Camille Larry, she just got an update from East Point Police a short time ago. Camille joins us live now. Camille.
Yeah, this is an absolutely horrific story. We just got briefed from East Point Police, and then we headed down here, which is about a mile down the road, here at the 9 Mile McDonald's. So I want you to take a look at some video. We're going to talk about what happened. So let's rewind the clock back to about 8 o'clock. Actually, prior to that, there was a dispute. Police say there was a dispute between two employees. One employee leaves, a verbal altercation. One employee leaves, comes back, and then proceeds, this is according to police, proceeds to stab that employee, that fellow employee that they had a dispute with, in the area of the drive-through, inside where the employees work. Well, then this is where things take a twist. A customer in the car going through the drive-through sees this, witnesses this. He takes a gun, this according to police, shoots it up in the air, and then realizes exactly what's happening, trying to stop this stabbing from happening. And then he actually chases the suspect, runs away, and then he chases that suspect, holds that suspect at gunpoint until police get there. Now, we did talk to some witnesses, and we're going to hear from them. I do want to report that we have confirmed from police that the victim is deceased, a woman in her 30s, and the suspect is in custody, a 26-year-old woman. But let's listen to what that one witness had to say.
She left for 5 minutes. She came back with a mask on her face, and the only thing I seen was her hands. That's how I knew it was her. And she started stabbing her, and I ran for help, and basically asking everybody, like, help her with her. I tried to stop her. It was no stopping her. She stabbed her everywhere.
Okay, so last clip I'm gonna show. The suspect in question posted on social media before she went back and killed her manager. So, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts, but just once you have the full context on us addressing what seems to be this epidemic of mental illness, of, once again, teen crisis. I'm not trying to black, conservative brother, you just trying to bash black women and call out our people, and there's a white guy that did this. Yeah, they did that too, of all races.
I got sent home early yesterday.
So we need to call out. Sorry. So we need to call out it happening, whether it's a white boy shooting up a movie theater or school, or if it's a black girl doing this. So that's. So I'm gonna just play this, and then if y'all want to touch on it, I think we're all in agreement with what the root cause is, but just so we can have the full context. Once again, we don't know her full mental illness status. We don't know her family situation, but I just want to show this just for the last context.
I got sent home early yesterday. I got sent home early today by the same person. I'm telling you, she's a bully. This isn't funny. She needs to understand that she's a mother and got children doesn't mean that she can come in the store, disrespecting people, talking to them like it's beneath her. She has no respect. And it isn't funny at all. Like, seriously, man, I got to take care of. She keeps sending me home early. It's not funny. She's playing games. And then she keeps saying a little racial shit. And throughout the day, she keeps on like putting negative energy in here and talking about people, gossiping about people. It's not funny, man. Stop. She's a bully. I'm telling you. She's a bully. She brings a lot of energy in there. She always panics when there's a lot going on. And she try to manipulate that to make it seem like we ain't doing something right. But we are working really hard at doing great. It's just the fact that she panicked. I saw her a few times making a mistake, and she tried to play it off. Nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, Somebody might get confused. It gets busy, yeah. But she needs to stop playing like she don't make a mistake. I'm catching her. So her all that animosity and she keep putting in there and stuff. They're trying to tell me I'm always snapping on people. No, that's false. No, I don't snap on people. I don't go in there doing it. I tell her, no, I make peace. That's what I'm doing. I'm creating peace. So with all the negative energy that she's bringing in there trying to manipulate it, no, it's going to stop. All the negative she's saying about, her personal life, all of that. No, she's bringing all that in there. And then playing games that she's going to take her belt off and beat somebody down like the kids in there. No, we ain't your kids. Stop talking to us like that. This is crazy. I'm telling you. But to get sent home 2 days in a row, man, she still sends me home early. It's not funny. Somebody about to do something about that. It's not funny. It's not fair. It isn't funny. So, she can keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her. Because it ain't funny at all. It ain't. Then one day she coming in there and talking about some, I broke my door in half and I had to pull my gun out on my kids. This and that. Well, telling us that, like, telling us you pulled a gun out on your kids for. You sound like a psychopath. That's what I wanted to tell her. She was talking about some she blacked out. I'm like, yeah, you must have had blacked out if you pulled the gun out on your kids. Like, I'm like, what the f*** you telling me this? Like, then she's like trying to make it seem like that she big dog or something. What the f*** about you telling me about you pulling the gun out on your kids? Like, that doesn't scare me. You know what I mean? That doesn't scare me. She thought she was trying to intimidate me. That didn't intimidate me at all. I don't know about something with the he did. Maybe that's why they always fight her to defend themselves. They probably felt like their life was threatened.
So this is the woman that was confirmed to be the stabbing suspect who killed the mother of 6. All right, so I played all that for the full context. There's even other videos over here showing up to her arraignment. So this could be somebody's aunt, somebody's cousin, somebody's mother, somebody's wife. And once again, if it's a white kid doing it, a Middle Eastern person, whoever it is, it's the behavior we need to call out. So whoever wants to go, just kind of give their quick thoughts. Like, are we getting better at holding our people accountable to activity like this? I worked at McDonald's. I hated my manager, but I never tried to kill him. But obviously, there's probably a lot of things going on with her mentally that need to be addressed. But yeah, I just want to go ahead. I'm gonna get off my rant. Anybody just want to comment on this? And are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to address the uncomfortable truth about our community, the youth, and what's going on, to where the killer feels the need to post about it before they go and kill the boss? But
No,
is it just me?
No, because the bigger picture. Like I said, when it comes to addressing Black youth, again, there's no accountability in Black culture anymore. Now you look at there's a disturbing trend that's been happening amongst Black women in the last 10 years that needs to be addressed. And what needs to be addressed when it comes to Black women is the criminal and ratchet behavior of Black women. I mean, this is a new phenomenon that has transpired in the last 10 years. Women, you would never hear of it was a rare case where you hear of a Black woman doing something like this.
Right.
You would never,
or the white guys.
Yeah. Because, there was never a Black serial killer until you had Malvo in Washington.
Or the DC sniper?
The DC sniper.
Yeah.
That was the first, Black serial killer. But the disturbing thing that we've been seeing transpire in the last 10 years, and have really been intensifying, I would say, in the last 3 years, is the ratchet, murderous behavior of Black women.
But we can't call it out. We call it out. Oh, you're racist. Oh, you trying to tear down Black women. It's like we can't even have this conversation.
No, but we're gonna have. It's time that we call a spade because again, it's all about accountability.
No matter who you are, no matter what color you look like, we're calling out, like you said, Pastor Green. We're calling out the sin, not the sinner. We don't hate the sinner. We hate the sin.
Hate the sin. I hate the sin. But you never used to see black women acting like this. I mean, I see. And then, another thing that is becoming a problem with black women also is all these videos. I mean, you got black women who have no discretion these days. You put all your business out in the air that people are not even asking you to talk about. You got these black women talk about their sex lives and whatever. And these cars are becoming video production. So every time you turn around, you got a black woman making a video from her car, talking nonsense, talking crazy.
It's also I talked about this before. Jason Whitlock talks about this a lot. It's the over radicalized racial idolatry. I got no problem with black pride and where we're from and all that, and just being proud of our culture. I mean, I'm not even really the current black culture, but what I mean is once we go from we're proud of being black, but we're proud of our black community, our nuclear families, our traditional family values, our respect the but when it comes like to that, and we're abandoning all these values that built up our neighborhoods prior to the 1950s, and now it's sort of debauchery, but it's still black, so it's okay. That's what racial idolatry is, where you abandon all the things that actually made the black community strong. We abandon those values over something, it's black. That's what racial idolatry has become. And black women have kind of, the Democrat Party, they just built them up, and we put Ketanji Brown on the SCOTUS, and we got Kamala as VP, and they get wooed by these symbolic positions of these black faces in white places, and just the general symbolic flattery. And this is what you get. You get, I dated there was a sister I dated a few years ago, and we dated for a little while, and like every time we went out to the restaurant, I'm telling you, if we had a white girl for a waitress, she'd have put her through hell. Every little thing. From like, I didn't she didn't smile at us as soon as we sat down. Why did she sit us over here? And the food the soup wasn't actually hot. It was every little piece. And once again, I'm calling out behavior, anybody that acts like that. But I just see a trend. It's something you can't notice. You notice you and Uncle Tom, you bashing black women. Like, no, it's gotta be called out. And I think it's just we bought to the racial idolatry, worshiping the skin color over worshiping Jesus Christ,
Put culture over Christ. That's the problem with the black community, because we used to put Christ over culture, and we were a better people.
And now it's like we're worship. Black women need to be worshipped and all that sort of rhetoric. I don't think black men should. I don't think white guys should be worshipped. Black men should be worshipped. You need to worship, once again, just whoever your religion, like whoever if you're a believer or not. But you don't put, just how you don't put your faith in any one person, any one political party, any one politician. Guess what? You don't put your faith into one demographic. I don't worship black. I don't think black men should be worshipped. I don't think white guys should be worshipped. I don't think black women should be worshipped. You should worship the one and only Jesus Christ or whoever you believe in.
That's right.
But when people feel like they need to be elevated, I'm this and that. So let me get off. Conspiracy brother, your thoughts, or Pastor Green, you want to hop back in?
No, the last thing I want to reflect on, did you see the mask that she was wearing when she committed this crime?
No, I didn't see the man. I didn't see that.
She looking like Jason.
Oh, it was a hockey mask? What she have on?
I mean, it was something outrageous. It looked like it was just outrageous.
Oh man.
When she committed the crime. And see, this is the mentality that is creeping that has overtaken the black community. And we need to be accountable and wake up and denounce it rather than
wow. This shit out of The Purge. Out of that movie The Purge, basically. She was wearing a Chucky mask?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Wow. Get killed wearing something like that. That's demonic.
It is.
This is just. I didn't even know about this. I just thought she had on like a little Antifa mask.
No.
There's something off. And conspiracy brother, I know you know.
Yeah. So so this is something I was thinking about that I forgot to bring up before. About LA. So how much money did Karen Bass offer the people who lost their homes from the wildfires because there was no water in the fire hydrants?
Wait, conspiracy brother. How we gonna tie this back to this story?
What? No, but I was thinking about that because I saw the picture of her when you were scanning through, and that's what kind of, you know, you giving illegal immigrants money because of ICE raids and LA citizens who lost their homes because you didn't have water in fire hydrants. I didn't even know that was a thing, and fire trucks. You didn't have enough fire equipment, and so their houses burned up. But you're giving. Did they give LA residents any money for that?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a slap in the face, and anybody who takes these people seriously, you do it at your own peril. But as far as this, so my first reaction was, you know, that this is why you got to be nice to people. And I'm not making an excuse, but at the end of the day, you know, some black ladies have a certain attitude, especially when they get positions of authority. And you know, as she said in her little thing, you know, her manager would kind of talk to her crazy or whatever. I can only imagine because the girl, I mean, she's kind of weird seeming anyway. So I can just imagine that she might have got picked on a bit because she's a little oddball or whatever at work.
She's just
and you know, sometimes people from Detroit have a tendency to believe they're the toughest people on the planet, and everybody bleeds. You know, but the individual seems like she has changed her name a few times. Seems like she may be from Maryland, actually. So, you know, there may be a bit of sketchiness in her past. This is unfortunate, for sure. But you know, we were just talking about the listlessness and rudderlessness of young people. This girl is 26, has nothing to lose, 26 years old, working at McDonald's. You know, McDonald's is not the kind of job that we typically associate with 26-year-olds. You know, this is kind of like a low-wage teenager, early 20s, summer job till you go back to school. But things are so out of hand, you know, and the internet and all this stuff with the gender stuff and the emotional stuff, people have lost their minds. And so this is all you can handle, or this is all you can manage. You know,
you don't know what subreddits rabbit hole she's been down,
right?
And also,
or 4chan or any of this stuff.
And I watched part of the arraignment, just like a clip, and the lawyer, you know, you can tell the lawyer there just like, yeah, my client, you know, she graduated high school. She's taking online classes for physical
but she has
therapy.
a criminal history. She has a criminal history.
Yeah, she had priors, but you tried to kind of doll that up, like, well, she's taking online classes for physical therapy. I'm like, that ain't about the okay. But yeah, what was her priors for?
She had violent priors.
And let me guess, like our soft on crime Detroit elites let her go, or she got downgraded, or they just they didn't get charged her.
I'm not sure, but now because she kept coming in and out of the system, now after this she gets $5 million bail. Well, she should have been given a high bail when she was doing the other stuff.
Let's follow the money and see what Soros-linked prosecutor or Soros-linked city officials downgraded her case or just kept letting her go. I'm pretty sure there's some soft on crime ties, possibly, to where
Absolutely.
like, why isn't she behind bars? But it's still a conspiracy, brother. I know you were still wrapping up a point.
Well, yeah, I mean, she does have a criminal history, and you know, so our whole infrastructure that we have is just off. We don't offer so many services for American people, and you know, some people have speculated that she was like an immigrant or something, or a child of immigrants based on her name. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
But you have so many services that are not available for American people for mental health stuff, and you expect me to feel bad that illegal immigrants are getting kicked out, or they're getting cut off of social services programs, or you want me to advocate that they get their rents paid, or you want me to, you know, cheer that they're being given monies if they were involved in raids with immigration and customs enforcement. I don't have it, you know. I don't have it. American people who pay taxes are suffering. They're suffering at a rate we haven't seen, you know, maybe ever. And you know, I don't. And you have decided to come here voluntarily. You know, you have decided to come here voluntarily rather than fix your own country and make your own country a better place to live. Make your country the kind of place I want to immigrate to. Why don't you return the favor? Make your country the kind of place Americans would like to go to sometime, instead of just eating off of our plate. Let us eat off of your plate.
Nah, they want to talk about gentrification.
Right. They want you to speak
Yeah.
Spanish and pay taxes.
Hey, before I get on that, hey, hold on. I know we tying it back. I was just about to say, I forgot the point I was about to make. But yeah, being disrespected. So see right here, like, you know, I'm gonna tie this back to the Carmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf situation. I know that's a little, you know, dialed down in the media right now. They're kind of in between trials or in between, you know, next date or whatever. But it's this consistent thing where this culture, this new generation, and I know millennials too, where I've been disrespected. You know, it used to be back, you know, oh, I stepped on my Jordans or, you know, scuffed my Jordans. I've been disrespected where things will escalate from somebody shoving you to where you pull out a knife. And we see this, it's breeded in the hip hop culture of like, when you get disrespected, that's as worse as somebody killing your mom. I've been disrespected. So I see these weird parallels where, I'm sorry, we all had horrible bosses. There's a whole movie about it. Or managers. But at the end of the day, if you get disrespected or you're pissed off, nothing should escalate to the point where you're stabbing a kid in the heart because he asked you to move, or because your manager sent you home twice. This is something rooted with this. I've been disrespecting somebody, like killing my family. Like, people treat that like that. That's that. Man, I'm done. I mean,
But
anybody else?
one thing I just want to point out, it's a biblical principle to hear one side of a story and make a judgment is foolishness, because we will never hear the manager's story. And keep in mind, this woman was a manager of this one particular McDonald's for 15 years.
15 years, and I'm sure
15 years.
I'm
So
pretty
there's a
sure
lot of
she.
credibility with that.
Yeah.
So we see her accuser was a loon. It's crazy. This woman maintained a career for 15 years. So, it's easy just to hear one side of the story and make a conclusion, but you know, we won't hear this woman's. We won't hear the other side of the story, unfortunately. But we know that this woman
Yep.
had to be a respectable, upstanding citizen and boss to maintain a position like that for 15 years.
Right, exactly. And guess what? Did she maybe play politics? Did she have enemies at work? Does she probably, you know, maybe like a petty boss? Who knows? But does that justify at all her losing her life? Of course not. And of course, like you said, we'll never know. You know, and people have the right. You know, bosses may have the right to be a little bit. If they're short with their employees. Hey, it is what it is. But yeah, we'll never know. Like you said, Pastor Green. It's just sad. 'Cause
Yeah,
this could have been anybody we know with kids, you
exactly.
know. So whew, missed me with all that. All right, y'all. I'm glad we were able to get that conversation out. Got a couple topics left. I'm actually gonna save these for last. Maybe next time. I know we run it over. But let's get to our tinfoil hat topic. Once again, guys, you guys are watching Uncomfy Truths. Uh our subtopic or our topic section ran quite over. So I think we're just gonna end it on our last subtopics. Lord, we're at 3 hours, y'all. Going back to old school. We gotta guess tighten up our timing, but great discussion. Great discussion. So let's end it. Is 1 year as of today was the big the fight birth of Trump rally assassination attempt at Butler, Pennsylvania. Pastor Graham, I'm not sure how far you are from Butler out there in Pennsylvania, but 1 year later, and I think we all remember where we were when we first heard about that shot firing off.
Well,
And then we also got the DOJ Epstein case is closed. I thought this is kind of interesting. We can maybe dovetail these. Yeah, whenever you're ready. Yep.
well, as far as
Pastor Green.
yeah,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Yeah,
We
I
could
hear
go.
you.
We could just dovetail on
Yeah.
both of them. I think both of them.
Well, just
I can
just
hear
for
you. Yep.
the time, I'll just keep this brief. But I saw the video of that Trump assassination attempt, and there was a lot of people that should have been arrested. These people shouldn't have been. The Secret Service agents shouldn't have been suspended. They should have been fired. And I never forget the video. I saw a video when they was putting Trump in the in his vehicle, and one of the security forces had a machine gun and aimed it right at his head.
Mm.
So we know, if anything, this was a hit by the government. It was an attempted assassination by the government, and I think people should be put in jail. Which is the thing that I also understand about Trump and this administration. I don't understand why people are not in handcuffs for obvious crimes that we all witnessed in America. And Trump just want to take this, conciliatory approach. No, some people need to go to jail and be held accountable for what they've done.
Right.
And then you get back into the Epstein files, and now he is talking this nonsense. Oh well, look, we're not going to talk about it no more. Case closed. No, you were the one that opened this up in 2015. He exposed Jeffrey Epstein since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that when he first started running for president, they asked him, they asked him about Bill Clinton. He said, "Oh, Bill Clinton, nice guy, but he's going to have a lot of trouble with Jeffrey Epstein concerning Jeffrey
Yep.
Epstein." That was 2015.
The deep
And here we
staters
are.
going deep state.
You just want to sweep it under the rug? Oh no, I'm not going for that. I'm a
All
Trump
right.
supporter, but I'm not supporting Trump on this one. And I yield.
All right. I gotta go a cut deeper, conspiracy brother. I'm gonna bring you in for this. So I got a couple of theories. So once again, a year later, we still don't know much about the shooter, this little 21-year-old kid that apparently was like, oh, he was like a far right person, and you look him online and he had, they scrubbed all his stuff, but they put that like, oh, he donated to he registered as a Republican a few months before, and then we dig more deeper. It turns out he donated to Act Blue. He basically had this weird case with his parents. His parents apparently had some ties to either some deep state ties with the government, and one of them worked for something, and then the parents went missing or whatever, or they just been silenced. So we never got full transparency on this shooter. Uh, they get speed rush. He gets speed rush cremated a few months, like a few weeks afterwards. None of it really adds up. And I think my theory is, I think it was the deep state, Kamala Harris, the uniparty elites, Republicans, and Democrats alike that just didn't want Trump back in. And the shooter missed, or Trump looked away. So I think they did intend to kill Trump. I don't buy the whole leftist like, oh, it was all fake. I think they did tend to kill Trump. And I think since that, I think there was some sort of meeting, maybe August, September, where Trump realized, all right, they are trying to kill me. And I think he made some sort of compromise. And I don't know whether it was right before this or after that he accepted $100 million from Muriel Edelson. And, they're super pro-Israel, where it's kind of like, yeah, we're going to just do a lot of this establishment agenda. And I honestly think that he made a compromise, and they were like, all right, well, we'll let you live and we'll let you win the election in November, but you still have to be beholden to the Israel regime, military industrial complex. We won our war with Iran. And you know what? You got to let that Epstein file stuff alone, because we're all in there along with you. Or, we'll implement you in there, even if you did only kick out Epstein and you didn't go to that island. We'll find a way to loop you in there. So that's what I honestly think. And the way Trump is kind of maneuvering right now, where Epstein case files closed, and just the weird continued alignment of Israel. We're supposed to be America first or America only, which I like, and we have more for this. And he called bad names, but we still see this continued push toward business as usual. So that's honestly what I think, that once again, they meant to kill Trump, and Trump knows that, and he was like, all right, I'll toe the line to these things you guys want. Just let me and my family live. And I think one of those things where, when you get in there, that Epstein file stuff is, no more talk about that. It's done. So that's my theory. Conspiracy brother, you want to go right ahead?
Well, yeah, I mean, this Epstein thing, the fact that, you go from saying, I got the files on my desk, to there are no files, he committed suicide, is like quite a turn. And I think you talked about this a little bit before, Pastor Green. I don't have any, personal experience with like corrections officer work or anything, but like just hearing the story, like, oh yeah, he committed suicide. Where's the video? Oh, we don't have any. The security guards who were supposed to be watching them both fell asleep, and something happened to the cameras. Like, come on. You couldn't give a more lame excuse. That's like some Batman stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what did they get tied up by Catwoman or something? Get out of here.
All right.
One of the most high profile. And I mean, I really don't believe he's dead. Like, I don't believe he's even dead. He's probably just off somewhere. Because, what are the odds that a man who maybe one of the most high profile criminals or at least residents of a jail in New York City, maybe since the mob days, is there, and he just happens to commit suicide while he's supposed to be under 24-hour suicide watch, and he's got like cloth, or not cloth, but like fabric, like paper clothes, paper bedding. Like, come on, man. What are you talking about? And then you go from saying, I have the files, they're on my desk, to there are no files. He committed suicide. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here.
And I think also notably too, like I think we talked about this before, like a lot of the problematic ties with Pam Bondi. I know a lot of people she's kind of the sacrificial lamb in a lot of this, but you know, she got ties to, I think it was some sheriff in Florida, or some Florida House official, where she got some ties to like doing some work for them, or vice versa. Somebody covered that as well. And then also the last episode that Ian Carroll guest hosted for Candace Owens, one of the last episodes, Ian Carroll did a master class on the Epstein files. I don't know, Pastor Green, if you're familiar with him, but he's been doing, him along with Candace Owens, Tucker, they're doing the Lord's work. And Ian Carroll did such a master class when Kash Patel went on Rogan and first said, like, oh, it's not looking like, or him and Dan and Bongino went on Fox News and said nothing's there. He delivered a master class of all the people surrounding the Epstein case you could follow up on. You could do, like, he basically gift wrapped so much evidence to go after. And apparently Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, it's like they get in, and it's not about investigating and doing real investigation. They're giving this sanitized list of folders to just sift through. Oh yeah, we concluded. But that's no investigation. So even if people just go back and look at the a few months ago, Ian Carroll, uh, Candace Owens episode, where he delivered just so much on what they can go after them on, and the fact that they're just like, well, no, we didn't. We looked through the files that the deep staters left for us, that we're supposed to just look at and conclude. It just blows my mind. But yeah,
Well,
get back to
there's a point I need to make, and
yeah.
and this is from professional experience. When a prisoner is on suicide watch, it is an officer's job to look into his cell with a flashlight every 4 to 6 minutes. Okay? And first of all, in a prisoner cell like that, okay, he has no material that he can hang himself. He's observed that much. And see, there's a conspiracy. There's something nefarious going on, because right next to the Metropolitan Correctional Center is the New York FBI headquarters, right down the block.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of it, you have the federal court building. And then if you go another 10 blocks, you got New York City Hall, where the mayor does business. So that whole area, okay, is where law enforcement and legal matters that affect the country and sometimes happens. So how are you going to tell me, okay, someone on suicide watch is going to kill themselves and the cameras don't work? Only when he gets there. Those cameras are supposed to be monitored. They're supposed to be updated every day. If there's a problem with the cameras, the first thing they would do, they wouldn't have kept them on that floor if you couldn't give them proper supervision. They'd transfer to another floor where everything is operational. So, and even that video that they showed, that wasn't even a cell block. Because if you notice in that video, that was
they said it was a different door. They said it was a different door.
Yeah, it wasn't even near his cell. That was nowhere near his cell. Because you saw an officer walk through there. She had radio for a door to be open automatically. You wouldn't have that next to where prisoners are because they could just walk through there too. So the whole thing stinks to high heaven. It really is because it's corruption all the way around. And Donald Trump has created a problem for himself. I don't know why he did this flip flop, but this if he doesn't resolve this the right way, this is going to be a stain on his administration that he is not going to be
Amen.
able to reverse.
Amen. Oh, I'm not saying we got duped, but I think we just brought in one uniparty establishment for the next. Once again, I'll take Trump inside over Kamala any day.
No, so would
Just
I, but he needs to
yeah,
resolve this and he needs to come clean. He has to resolve this. This is not going to go away.
I'm just afraid that, like I mentioned, I think assassination attempt, like see what we can do, and I think he was just thinking about his legacy. And do we want the Trump family to be the new Kennedy family? Getting unalive. So I think honestly, like I said, he ended up having to compromise. All right, you get back. We'll let you win the election. We'll let you live. We won our war with Iran. Business runs, and Israel's our greatest ally. So I think that's kind of they got to him. I think at some point. So that's just my theory. Conspiracy brother, anything before we wrap up? I know we're running way over, but it's great show.
Yeah.
It's a really great show.
I mean, I was always suspicious because, the people in charge aren't just going to let some disruptor come in and disrupt. The system is not set up to be disrupted. But,
All right.
I wanted to be hopeful that he would weaponize his supporters as some sort of security or insurance policy for himself, that if he has some kind of untimely demise, he'd assemble the MAGA faithful like Voltron and really, unleash the beast on the deep state. But apparently not, man. Apparently not. Disheartening because, man, oh man, it's unfortunate because, as Pastor Green was saying, this was an expectation. I mean, looking at the flight logs, you could see Bill Clinton was on the planes like 20 sometimes, and Hillary Clinton, I think she was on the planes twice, and Prince Andrew and all that stuff. But I mean, unless the and this is again when we talked earlier about how everybody wants to live in America without sacrifice. Even the president is not willing to stand up for what he claims to believe in and sacrifice. And so you live in this country where the deep state exists and continues to exist and flourish because nobody is willing to stand up and lose anything. I think it was Dr. King. What did he say? Evil wins when good men do nothing, or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. And so this is that, right? Because we're all speculating, right? So we could say, hey, man, I'll act, but you don't have proof. You're not the president. You don't have proof.
you have speculation, whereas the president has the proof in hand. And so it's a much different situation, you know. But again, I was going to say, just, you know, we have to try to break free from the institutionalization that captures us. And so, you know, you look at horses and dogs and stuff like that, they become trained, and then eventually they behave however you want them to behave, without a leash, without a collar, without reins, without a saddle, without a lead, you know, anything. They are trained. And it's like the American citizenry is trained. We're completely trained now. We're broken. We're domesticated.
And yeah, it's unfortunate. And even like one topic, my last two little subtopics we had, maybe conspiracy brother, I would love to get maybe the next show you could put together your top 10, top 20 people you need to follow. Because throughout the week you're always sending me, hey, you should see this person, and you sending me this. I'm like, who are these? It's like always a new person. I never get the same video from the same person twice, but I love it.
Okay,
it's great.
I'll try to compile a list.
Yeah, put like a little list together, and we could share. You could share it on the show. And then the last fact that I got banned again, y'all, from Twitter. What I call Twitter X. So this Elon Musk, like, oh, free speech, it's not real. And I'm not like making violent hate speech threats. I may say some comments, but I'm done with Twitter, y'all. Twitter X. So conservative brother, you can still follow me on. I'm on Brighteon, Truth Social, Rumble, Odyssey. But yeah, I'm done with Twitter X because it's like I'm done trying to. And I'm still on YouTube too. They'll still have me. I don't post on there much. But yeah, I think we just got to remember, like, as you like to always say, conspiracy brother, we follow the truth wherever it may lie. And I know I may have kind of ruffled a little feathers earlier with, like I said, just keep an open mind. I still, when it comes to MLK, I still appreciate and respect what his legacy is, what he has done, what he meant to black people. I just think there's a lot of things, unfortunately, I think that kind of explains the way our culture is now, that I think, kind of like how we talk about Elon, I think MLK was part of his movement, even if it was intentional. Part of it was hijacked. And I did think it was a Trojan horse to kind of lead us to part of where we are now. But once again, I still respect the civil rights thing and everything we did. But it was Democrats that were against a lot of that. And then eventually, once they figured they couldn't stop us from voting, like LBJ said, we had these Negroes voting for us for a few years. Either way, I just say I sent you guys the interview. Check that out. Keep an open mind. I ain't trying to, bad talk MLK, but it's just different information. So as we say, we want to follow new information, the truth wherever it may lie. But I think this has been an excellent show. Long show, going back old school, but I think very fitting. And we're at episode 48. It's actually been 3 years since we started the show. So, Conspiracy Brother, I appreciate this journey. The last 3 years, and then Pastor Green, you coming aboard last year has been great, and it just took us to another level. And yeah, we'll be back for episode 49, I believe, on the 27th, and then we'll be at episode 50 in August. So that's all I got. Anything else anybody else wants to add before Pastor Green closes out in prayer? Celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 episodes in August. Anybody else wants to add anything? I know I run my mouth too much.
No, I'm good. Conspiracy brother.
No, I think that was a good way to end.
All right. So, Pastor Green, if you could really quick just close us out with a prayer. I know we need it, and then we'll be out.
And dear Lord, we just thank you for this time that we had together. And we just pray, Lord, that it was informative and that, Lord, it will lead to the eyes of people being open. And I thank you for this opportunity that you have given us tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Uncomfy truths. If somebody else doesn't say it, then we will. See ya.